meeting is order. Good evening, everyone. And we'll begin with the pledge of the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see a full house this evening. I want to start just with a few announcements before we get started. Hope we all got agendas, and I think we did quite a few of them, so they're available in the back of the room if you didn't. We do video record all of our meetings, and they will be available on the township's website. Written meeting minutes will also be available on the website after they're approved by the board. Any individual here has the right to record these proceedings, but you would have to announce your intent to do so at this time. There will be two opportunities for public comment. There's a policy attached to your agenda that we will follow. We will ask that after being recognized by the chair, you step forward to the microphone in front of him and state your name and address before addressing the board. I also want to announce that we came out of executive session just before this meeting. We had two topics. One was the review of a potential settlement for an employee who is out on workman's comp, and the other one was an update on the development rights dispute by a property seller. With that, we'll introduce the board just by self-introductions. Dave Rose. Art Rutledge. Paul Solomon. Jeff Rem. To my left, we have our township manager, Todd Ziegler, our solicitor, Tim Buck, and our recording secretary, Wendy Brown. All right, we're going to begin by just kind of temporarily recessing our normal agreement agenda so we can move to, I guess, the topic of the night, which is a proposal for an ordinance number 2019-03, which is for rezoning. So I'll open the public hearing for that. And before we invite anybody to comment, I'd like to ask Todd if he will kind of just walk us through the basis of the ordinance and what we're doing. Or was it with you?
Here's everybody. Can everyone hear me okay? Do I need the mic? Okay. All right. Just going to run over some very basics. Some of the information I'm going to share is a result of a lot of questions that I fielded from the side and the letters that we mailed out, which we appreciate because it helped us fine-tune some responses back to you folks. One of the questions that was asked frequently is what prompted this rezoning. What prompted it was back in October of 2018, we had a group that currently is situated in the township. I don't know if everyone's familiar with them. New Life Center for Children and Women, I think I have that correct. They're about a 40-year resident in the township. They're located at 120 Valley Road, Glen Rock. Anyway, they approached the board in October of last year with just some general zoning questions regarding a property on Sitesland Road. And this is a map that's from our engineer. It's not the most current, but the property in question is here. You may know it as Sunlight Lane. There's a large home up on the hill. Anyway, what was conveyed to us at that point in time, that the owner of that property was interested in donating that to the New Life Center. And through that conversation and through their zoning questions and so forth, the board decided to take a look at not just that particular property, but this, if you look at it, it's like a darker beige right here, which would be, more on the southern side of Sitesland. There's 5 parcels there, and then there's one up here at the corner at Fair School Road. Those are all currently zoned rural residential receiving. What the board did was ask staff, which consists of our township engineer, our zoning officer, a representative from the York County Planning Commission, and myself, to take a look at all 26 of those parcels and see what made sense, if any sense, to rezone those. Rural residential receiving, I'm going to jump around back and forth here a little bit. surface that works here. I'd like to show you here the chart. On the far left here, current residential receiving. Use by right, which means as long as you meet basically all the setbacks, your sewage requirements and so forth, these uses on the left you can do without having to go before a zoning hearing board for any special exception. These are accessory uses and so forth. So what we did is we had taken a look at what's currently zoned rural residential receiving, which allows use by right, ag, forestry, group home, which is less than 8, single-family homes and so forth. I know one of the questions that arose a lot is, concerns about a development. And what I point out to those folks is under the current zoning, you could put a development in as well. The only thing is that developer would have to purchase development rights from the agricultural district, but they could still do that. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the development going in on Campbell Road, going into New Freedom. That was a receiving district, 79 homes going in there, and they had to purchase 35 development rights out of the agricultural district. So that's just an example. Even though it's rural residential, it can still be developed. So it could still be developed as it stands today. After the board made the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that it went through our process, they then recommended that it go, well, it's not recommended, we're required to send the York County Planning Commission for their review and comment. Their recommendation back to the Board of Supervisors is that it be approved as presented. One of the other common questions that arose from folks that I've talked to, York County Planning Commission made reference to public water and sewer in the area, and I know some folks were concerned, are you going to be extending it into our area? I've been here 7.5 years, and there's never been one discussion, one word, one suggestion, one recommendation of expanding water and sewer beyond what's already there. So this zoning has nothing to do with expanding public utilities. Another question that was asked frequently was, what impact is this going to have on my real estate taxes? Your county assessment office assigns a classification to your property, where it's agricultural, commercial, residential, or what have you. Their classifications have no bearing on what the zoning is in a municipality. So you might be zoned agricultural, but you have a residential home, but if you look at the county assessment, it's going to say your classification is residential. So zoning has no impact on your real estate taxes. And I know a lot of the comments and concerns kind of focus around this idea of this gentleman donating his home for a group home. And we certainly understand everyone's interest and concern and so forth, but the purpose of tonight's hearing is to talk about rezoning, because if the rezoning goes through tonight, and if that property is donated or sold, and someone wants to come in, they would want to put a group home in, they need to go back to the Township Planning Commission as well as the Zoning Hearing Board in order to get approval. And there's additional criteria that they have to meet for a special exception. This board up here doesn't have any authority to make any decision toward a use of a property that was sold with the Zoning Hearing Board.
Todd, not to interrupt, it's probably worth noting that a group home for a certain number of people could go in there.
Yeah, I was going to go over this a little more. Yeah, that's a good point, thank you. So as I said, there were 26 parcels. Everything on the south side of Seitzlin is proposed to be rural residential, which is all this lighter, and it's contiguous to those parcels with that little section of agricultural land, so it's contiguous to that. And then these parcels on the north side of Manchester Street are proposed to become suburban residential, again, what's adjacent to those parcels. And then the last thing, I just want to run over here really quickly, is what I did here just for comparison's sake. If you look like I said on the left, everything's currently zoned rural residential receiving. Properties to the south on Siteson Road are proposed for rural residential. Everything on the north of Manchester Street, suburban residential. And what I did here was just kind of highlighted, for example, the uses by right, principal uses. And as you can see, there's really not a lot of difference as far as uses by right. Actually, going from rural residential receiving to just rural residential, you can't have a township or a private park in that area. Suburban residential, which is that yellow highlighted area or on the north side of Sitesland, that's what you are zoned. And these items here that are not highlighted, those are uses that could be in addition to what all three zones can use. Again, permitted accessory uses, you pick up 2 here, family daycare and outdoor furnace heating device, but family daycare is also permitted, across the street in suburban residential. And then same when you get down below here, principal uses by special exception. You have, camp, house of worship, public utility, that's pretty much all the same across the board. And if you go adult daycare, child daycare center, group home, nursery, nursing home, school, public or private, again, those are now permitted in the suburban residential, but they would also be permitted in the rural residential. So I just want to give you a quick overview. I don't know if anyone had any particular questions regarding what I spoke about. Yes.
Which of the uses in the proposed would require public sewer?
None of them would require it.
None of them would require.
No, not for the, are you talking about the rural residential on Sitesland?
Yes.
Yeah, no, none of those were required. So if they couldn't meet the requirements for on-lot septic, they wouldn't be able to do it. And something else I just want to note, because I did have this conversation with some folks. Again, none of us have the crystal ball, know what anyone's going to do with their property. They might not plan today on doing anything. Circumstances may change. 6 months, they may decide they need to do something with it. But one thing to keep in mind, I lost my train of thought.
I think you're going to bring up what you could do.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I know what it was. What I wanted to bring up was, there was some discussion about the steep hills and the woods. We have in our zoning ordinance, it's called critical environmental area, and anything that has a slope greater than 25%, you cannot disturb, you can't grade, you can't build on. So that limits a lot of development in a lot of areas in the township. The other thing is, if there's lots that are subdivided, and they're 1 acre lots, say, our ordinance prohibits you from disturbing a wooded lot greater than 14,000 square foot. So if there were subdivisions and there are 50,000 square foot lots, not more than 14,000 square feet can be disturbed for the house and the septic. The rest would have to remain wooded. Did that answer your question?
I think with that, let's just from here go to the public
Okay.
hearing and you can jump in.
Okay, sure.
And I think to make this simple, I don't know how many people want to talk. We ask if you're with a group, that if you have one person as a spokesman, that would be very helpful. We also would ask that you respect, we have a 5-minute time limit. We're going to ask Todd to clock that so that we don't go over that, so we try to give everybody a chance to talk. But we do have to get through this with a lot of other business tonight as well. But we do appreciate all of you that have shown up. I've had a chance to talk to some of you individually or in a group. It's been a very polite group. They've asked very good questions, and I think that's good. We've had recommendations that Todd has said from our staff, from our planning commission, and from York County Planning Commission. But tonight we want to hear from you, and what your comments or questions may be. So if you'll bear with me, I think I'd just like to start at the front of the room and just go back and ask if you want to comment rather than fight a lot of raised hands. That might work a little better for us. And so I'd rather skip
Probably
you?
not this time.
Rather skip you for now, is that
Yeah.
good? Okay. So, okay. Anything you would like to say? And again, we want to try to keep it as relevant to the zoning questions as we can. Anything that would deal with the potential for the donation and going to a home would be a whole separate issue that has to meet a page and a half of special exceptions and a whole lot of things that are decided by our zoning hearing board. So I want to go.
I have a question before you start. I see in the notes here on the agenda, if you wish to record that it needs to notify at the beginning, I would like to record this comment session.
Okay. Would you want the name? Okay, the only thing we ask is you just do it in a non-interfering basis, and that's fine. I think Wendy would need to know your name. You can
Okay.
do that for our secretary.
Okay, it's Eric, E-R-I-C, Schechter, S-C-H-E-C-H-T-E-R.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up again. You can see all this on our website as well, once it, it gets put on there, so, and it resides there for quite some time. Okay. Do you have any
Can
comments?
you tell us where to find that? Because many of us have tried several times to get on the township website, and we cannot come up with minutes, things like that. So I'm just,
We'll pause a moment for a little demo.
Yeah, okay. It's www.shrewsburytownship.org,
right,
and if you go under Government,
right,
Board of Supervisors, here's minutes,
wonderful.
and then here it is by year and month.
Okay, hold on.
One caveat to that, I believe, the minutes aren't posted until they're approved the following month.
That's a valid point.
So
Okay.
you won't be able to see minutes from this meeting until after the next Board of Supervisors meeting, once they've been approved.
Okay. That's okay then.
Can you show her how to get
And
to
the
that?
other thing, if you want to see the board videos, again, if you go to Government, Board of Supervisors, over to videos, we upload them to YouTube, and they are back quite a few years. There's current ones always on there.
Todd, how about the zoning ordinance? That's not here too, of course.
Yes, under documents and forms. That works. Documents and forms, if you go to ordinances, you can come over to our code of ordinances, which covers everything. You can actually go in there and scroll down to chapter 27. You can click on that. And that breaks down everything for the zoning ordinance. And if you just click on any of those, it'll open up that particular section. And
Great,
you can
thank
actually print them and everything.
Thank you.
Okay?
You can always call Todd. He'll walk
We
you
have.
through. Oh, okay, good.
Frequently.
Please do that.
Thank you for your help, by the way.
Sure.
You have been very helpful and answered questions that we have had with us.
We'll continue our process here. Do you have anything you'd like to say about the zoning?
My wife is speaking for me.
Okay, very
I'm
good.
not allowed to talk.
Well, first we're moved along good. We'll try this. How about you? Is there anything you would like to say? Next to you, sir. How about you, ma'am?
Can I wait? Can you come back to me? Tom?
Okay, I'll do that, sure. No? Okay.
My wife is home, so I can speak.
Only for 5 minutes.
I will try to honor that. Good evening. My name is Tim Schultz. I'm an attorney from Hanover, Pennsylvania. And I represent Frank Kozer and Stephen Walker with respect to the zoning. I do have a letter for the board. if I can
Okay,
read it.
sure. Thank you.
As I said, my name is Tim Schultz. In my practice, I represent a number of municipalities. I represent 2 townships, 2 boroughs, 3 zoning hearing boards, and an authority. And I only say that to let you know that I understand how difficult being a supervisor is and how thankless it is sometimes. And then I appreciate the work that you do in this township. I also wanted you to know that I've had substantial contact with your township manager, and he's been nothing but helpful, which is really terrific.
Well, thank you for those comments.
So I'm going to try to hopefully respect your 5 minutes, although I want to go over my letter, which is 7 pages, so I wanted to try to highlight a few things. One other thing to realize first and foremost is that your zoning ordinance is guided by your comp plan. And in fact, your ordinance makes specific reference to the comp plan. It says that its provisions are guided and the policies contained are to be consistent with the Southern York County comp plan. When you read the comp plan, it recognizes a growth boundary which terminates south of the borough of Glen Rock at Sykeston Road. The zoning ordinance itself recognizes this growth pattern, and it states that the comp plan created a growth boundary line that delineates the portions of Shrewsbury Township available for development and the region that's part of the ag zone. So in that regard, as a planning policy, the zoning ordinance specifically provides that public water and public sewer is not allowed for uses outside the growth boundary line except to service a commercial district. And this policy is designed to prevent the spread of development from the RR district into the ag zone. Now, I'm going to get back to the water and sewer in a couple minutes. The authors of the comp plan specifically note, with respect to rural residential, that it is only meant to reflect the existing development areas and limited infill opportunities that they still may possess in the future land use map. The goals of the plan are contrary to the extension of a rural residential development pattern into the areas designated as agricultural. Therefore, and this is what the comp plan says, in no way should the presence of these existing development sites be used as an argument for extension of the rural residential category onto adjoining undeveloped land or ag land. Instead, local officials should adopt zoning requirements that merely reflect the existing rural residential character. So, consistent with those goals, when you enacted your zoning ordinance, you set forth the purposes for rural residential and rural residential receiving. The rural residential purpose is intended to acknowledge and protect existing rural development and provide limited opportunities for additional low-density residential uses. It states that rural residential districts are in areas of the township without access to public water or sewer. And the regulations are designed to exclude, and this is very relevant to the proposed development. The regulations are designed to exclude activities of a commercial or industrial nature and any activities which are not compatible with low-density residential development. Now, with respect to rural residential receiving, it's supposed to provide for low-density residential and institutional development using on-lot water or public water and or public sewer. Now, interestingly, the RRR district does not permit group homes in excess of 8 persons.
That's correct.
Okay? Which is interesting if you look at the various purposes of the two zones. So when we look at the purposes of the two zones and then we compare them to the actual use regulations, that is what's permitted by right or what's permitted by special exception, they're not entirely consistent with the purpose. Special exception uses in the RR district are far more land use intensive than those in the triple R district, and include a multitude of uses which run counter to the stated purpose of the RR district and the comp plan. As a result, the RR district regulations, which are designed to exclude areas of commercial or industrial nature and any activities not compatible with low-density residential development, permit, by special exception, a number of commercial uses: child daycare center, a group home with more than 8 residents, houses of worship, nursery school, nursing home, schools. These are commercial, land-intense uses that don't reflect existing rural residential character of the RR zone, nor do they protect the existing rural development concentrations. And far from providing limited opportunities for additional low-density residential uses, these uses encourage, at least with respect to a large group home, and provide for high-density commercial uses. If you read the regulation...
Again, if I can caution you, trying not to focus on the group home, that's a whole nother issue, and if we have where do we deal with that? So we're really trying to focus on just the zoning aspects.
Well,
and I need to ask you to move it a little quicker.
Can we assign him our 5 minutes if we don't want to speak, if we decide not to?
No, because everybody here wouldn't be able to speak for 5 minutes and get through. Anyway, so we're giving him a little bit more time.
Okay, because he is representing.
No, he's already been here more than 5 minutes,
We
so
know.
we're giving him a little bit of time.
And I appreciate it. I don't mean to take up all your time, but to your point, you have to talk about the group home when you're talking about changing the zoning for the group home. So in my letter, and I'd like to go through it, but maybe you won't permit me to.
A summary would be good.
Well, I know, the point is that this is very dense stuff, and when you change zoning ordinances, you really have to go back to the beginning. You can't simply change them one piece at a time and have a comprehensive zoning pattern. That's why your job is very difficult, because you want to achieve certain ends, but you always have to go back to land use patterns, which is important because that's what you do your comp plan to achieve. So your zoning ordinance, which reflects the comp plan, also reflects the goals and aspirations of your community.
Bear in mind, the comp plan is, as you noted, about 10 years old. We're actually just starting now on revising that comp plan. And actually, your planning council pointed out that this is a little bit outside your plan. Just make sure you take that into consideration when you do your new comp plan.
Well, what we propose at the end is, instead of adopting this ordinance, is that you go back to your comp plan before you seek to change the zoning. Because I think if you read my letter, you'll see that the permitted uses in the RR district simply are not consistent with the comp plan, and they're not consistent with the stated purpose of the RR district at all. There's way too many commercial uses. Now, I'll talk about the group home for a second. The group home is not a residential use. A group home with more than 8 people, if you apply that to, hypothetically, to the development of this particular property, what you find is that if you apply the special exception regulations, you could have upwards in terms of 45 residents there, and upwards into 90 residents.
Not necessarily. That's something that would have to be reviewed and determined by the zoning hearing board.
If you simply apply the regulations, you get there. So you can't just change the zoning designation, you just can't change the map and then rely on the zoning hearing board to limit development. The specific regulations, all you need is a lot area of 1,000 feet per occupant. This particular lot is like It's like 20,
I think it's 32 point something
to
acres.
32 acres. So from a lot size alone, if you divide 1,000 feet per resident into 32 acres, you get, now this is ridiculous, but you get 1,409 residents. Now, the other regulation you would apply is facility size. Your regulation only requires 250 square feet per resident. So this particular house, according to the York County Tax Assessment Office, is 11,250 square feet. That permits 45 residents in the current house. If you apply the other regulations, because you only have setbacks of 50 feet, and you have the 14,000 square foot woodland retention issue, but if you get rid of 14,000 square feet of woodland, you could replicate the same building within 14,000 square feet, and then you would have 90 residents. There's nothing in your use regulations which limit it. Now, here's the other problem. We talked about water and sewer. Your planning document and the zoning ordinance specifically state that public water and public sewer should not be in this area, and yet it is. The public sewer was privately extended into this very lot. So now you have public water there, or I'm sorry, public sewer. So whereas the lack of public sewer acted as a brake on development, the presence of public sewer no longer acts as a brake. And there's another problem with that. There's no public water. So when you have public sewer and no public water, and development increases, that stresses private wells. And you may hear tonight that a number of your residents in this area already have hydraulic issues with their wells. Some residents have their wells run dry. So when you put 45 people in this house, or up to 90 people in this house, with a private well, you're going to stress the wells all around the area.
I appreciate all that, but there are good arguments for a zoning hearing board if it ever got to that with this group home. And in the interest of time, I'd like to move beyond the group home.
Well, I'll say this in closing about it.
He asked for it. That's all.
Sorry, he represents us, sir.
I know. We understand that.
Thank you.
That's why we've given him quite a substantial amount of time.
He's just about done, sir.
I'm sorry. With respect to the group home, the zoning hearing board, if they apply for a special exception, must give them a special exception if they meet the criteria.
There's a lot of criteria, though.
Well, there's no criteria limiting them in terms of numbers. There's criteria with respect to UCC and Department of Labor and things like that. But if they get all of that, you must give them a permit. Now, I want to be clear about the group home. My clients are not opposed to the New Life Center for Women and Children. And I think they do a tremendous job, and they provide an incredibly valuable service, as do other 501c3 organizations. But a 501c3 organization is not a zoning determination. And being a nonprofit doesn't mean you're not commercial. This is a commercial enterprise. So even though its motives are great, and even though it's going to serve their clients well, in terms of zoning, it just doesn't fit the RR district. So on behalf of my clients, what I would say is that you go back and look at the use regulations in your RR district and make sure that they are all compatible with the purposes. Second, you may very well do what you suggested and go back to your comp plan. And if you're going to make changes in your zoning, do so as a result of legitimate planning so that you're making the right decisions not only for one person, but for the township in general. And that's the end.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate those. You're welcome.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm Steve Glover. I've lived on Seitzman Road approximately 35 years and fond of all my neighbors, and I'm glad to see a great turnout here. And even Mr. Roddick, who wants to donate this land, but I have some concerns, and I'd like to address the board in all respect.
Sure.
Going into the history of the environmental sensitive area on Seitzman Road, you mentioned a very sensitive thing, and Mr. Solomon knows that we did battle about the TDR program, and from what I've heard just tonight, it has morphed greatly. I thought it used to be like a minimum of 10 acres up to like 17 acres. Now I understand that, like from what you said, 72 homes are going in on a receiving area. And when it goes into the receiving area, it's already getting public water and sewer. I don't know about all that stuff. But what I would like to say, turning to that, and then I'll move on, is that when that first episode happened there on Seitzman Road, where there was a new idea basically of TDRs, and we hired a hydrogeologist, sir. And our hydrogeologist said that in a short period of time, you're going to have nitrate poisoning. We presented this to the board, and I don't think it had any inflection at all, or any impact with the board, because they went ahead with the program. Well, we were encouraged, after we took it to EPA court, to have our well tested before any houses were built and periodically. And the last house built in there was about a little short of 5 years ago. And this is the documentation, if anybody would like to see it. In November 2004, our nitrates were 1.4. And November of 2018, they've more than tripled, sir. Almost 4. They are 3.93. I would advise the board to take a really close and conservative look at that TDR program in Shrewsbury Township. But moving further along, there are people sitting here in the audience that live on Seitzman Road, who I don't know if they want to get up and speak, but Mr. Sullivan remembers Mr. Koski. And Mr. Koski owned a farm down along 616, and he had a spring head as his water supply. Well, the one neighbor on our side of the road decided to fill a swimming pool up. And Mr. Koski's spring head went dry for 7 to 10 days. Mr. Schechter and I gave him water for 10 days till his spring decided to come back gracefully. And that was a little flag. And then I didn't get to meet my neighbors that moved into the development. And all of a sudden, their spring more in our development, they had a periodic experience with their wells going dry or nearly dry. For example, they put water in their swimming pool. There was iron ore deposits over the bottom of the pool. And from what I understand, that was really getting close to the bottom. The others too, their wells went dry. And up on top, some residents say their water per minute, gallons per minute, are like 1.5 to 3 gallons a minute. And moving right into the heart of the matter, sir, is that we don't know how many people are going in there. I don't think a soul in this room would say anything about 8 people going into that place. I lost a brother to heroin addiction. I know the pain.
Take your time, Steve.
And they do good work. But you gotta look at this, and the reality of all our prosperity is it's our life investment. And I went up and spoke to the York County Planning Commission, and they told me to ask the board and to present this. With 3 wells going dry, and a spring going dry like that, and the spring is like 125, 130 yards from Mr. Roddick's property, down over the hill. And I own 3 building lots there, plus my house. And someday I'd like to sell them. And I'll ask the board, who's got to be responsible or who's got to guarantee me for my water, as well as my neighbors. And that in those issues, I hope that we do not pass the zoning change, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments, we appreciate it. All right, we just keep going the next row.
We'll go this way or this way?
We're gonna go right back, lady, and, oh, stand here. Okay, next one over.
That's me. I would like to speak briefly. My name is Mary Kerr, and I live on Jessica Lane. Our property abuts part of Mr. Rogers' property. Basically, I want to thank you first for the opportunity to express my opinion regarding what's currently happening. Eddie and I live on Jessica, and we love that house. We were the last ones in, and we were there just shy of 6 years, not 5. We're at 12305 Jessica. We built our home in 2013 after many years of thought, discussion, and many changes to make this home our forever perfect home. We actively searched for a property more than 2 years before we found this property. One of the things that drew us, besides its natural beauty, is the zoning designation, which we believed at the time would keep it rural and keep its natural beauty for years to come. When the original zoning designation was appointed, I thought the reasoning behind was to stop urban sprawl. And so my question is, what's changed? Why is the proposed zoning to RR now necessary? From my perspective, I'm nobody. I'm one homeowner. I would just like to understand. You know what I'm saying? Just understand why and how and that aspect of it. I believe that changing the zoning would also affect what happens in our immediate neighborhood and the immediate future of the 25-acre parcel that's currently for sale just down the street on Siteslin. It presents an opportunity which doesn't currently exist under the RRR designation for the building of adult daycare center, child care center, group home, more than 8 occupants, nursing home, or more for your zoning report and your chart. And ultimately, as the attorney said, it would bring in more commercial use, which is not what the neighborhood, I believe, what we believed when we purchased was about. All in all, I mean, I know I'm only one person, one homeowner, and nobody, frankly, tomorrow will even remember me, and that's fine. But I must say, for me, it doesn't change the fact that I'm not on board with this change. It's not okay with me. My husband and I both come from very middle-class backgrounds. We were so proud to be able to put up our home, this forever home, and for it to be so beautiful. It's surrounded by woods and the wildlife, and it's absolutely stunning. And all I can ask is that please don't take this away from us. Please reconsider. And just, please.
I recognize you haven't done anything yet, that's right.
I know,
That's
but
why we
that's...
listen to all you tell me.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate it. I mean, you won't know unless we say something. Once again, I know I'm nobody. I got that.
You are somebody.
Everybody
But,
said about it.
when you work for years and years and you live moderately with the idea and the hope that's in our hearts to build that perfect home, and then to have something like this threaten it just breaks my heart.
Well, you are somebody, and you're getting that opportunity to tell us what you think, so
Thank you for the opportunity.
we appreciate that.
And we take this very seriously. We represent you, and we understand how some of you feel already, and we're going to take it very seriously.
Thank you.
Yes, you can go ahead, we did skip over this. We ask everybody to try to keep it as short as you can, just because there's a big group here, so whatever you can do to help us get through it.
Hi, my name is Laura Kosher. I live on Jessica Lane, next to the Kirks. And I think when you started and Mr. Ziegler forgot, you said if we had a crystal ball. And I think my question was, when I think what you were referring to is possibly how is it that this Mr. Roddick was able to run a sewer system to his home?
I have no knowledge of that. That was well before my time.
It was one, I remember I was here then, that doesn't mean I approved of it. I think he may have had an individual problem on his lot with his septic system.
So when you tax that septic system with more people, is it going, or?
Well, but so he had someone got permission to extend public sewer to his home, just that one home. But there may have been some stipulations along with that, which provides limitations to what he can do. It doesn't necessarily threaten the whole area, but it is an anomaly.
And what about the other two homes that he owns right in front of that property? Can he run sewer to that on his own again?
I don't know. At this point. I know there was a sewer line, it wasn't a public sewer line that was extended back there, it was a
I beg
private.
your pardon?
It was not a public sewer line that was extended back there.
Well, it hooked into the Glen Rock.
It doesn't,
Yes.
but it wasn't to open up an area for development. As I understand it, it's been a long time, it may have been just to solve a problem, that particular problem.
When you say a long time, what is the time frame you're speaking?
10 years? I guess.
Okay. Well, it sounds like that's a little shady that that happened, that he just went ahead and did that. And what I'm concerned about, honestly, is turning this one dwelling into a giant center. I don't know, but he's got two other houses on that property, and there's nothing to stop him, excuse me, not on that property, on the property he owns in front of it, two very substantial homes. One belongs to his mother-in-law. If something happens to her, what's to stop him from saying, oh, I want this in with them? And then he also owns the pastor's home that is on that, right there. And so if the pastor gets a new assignment, is that also going to become part of the compound? I don't understand. I just don't know where this is going to go. And I'm a school teacher. I've taught children from the New Life Center. I don't have a problem with that. We need to understand where this can go, and that's what needs to be addressed. I don't mind if people live in that house, but I just don't have a good feeling. And like Mary and Ed, I didn't grow up a wealthy person. My husband and I have saved and bought that land, and it took years till we could build that house. And I know that part doesn't matter about property, but anyway, I don't want to, we bought there because we loved the view. We bought there because it was rural, very rural. And that's why we liked it. And I don't want to have a huge population in my backyard, and I'm sorry about that. But
I can appreciate that, I think the whole board can, and we're very sensitive to that issue. This group has been very planning orientated all along, and very environmental orientated. 80% of our township is on agriculture, for example. And this is kind of an anomaly that's come up, and it's caught me by surprise a little bit. I'll say one other thing too. Sometimes you enact a zoning ordinance and a plan that goes with it, of course. He sees it with the best intentions in the world, and you think it's iron tight. And then you get an example like this come up, and you say, we didn't necessarily envision this. You know? So we're not unsympathetic.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just keep going. I want to keep on around. Next.
Good evening. I'll be short. My wife's going to let me speak, but only for a couple minutes. My wife is Mary Kirk.
Thank you.
As she explained, we have our dream home. We love it. We love the area. But obviously, the concern has been brought up. Steve had mentioned individuals having water problems. I'm one of those people. I like to do things myself. I seeded areas. I turned my sprinkler on and depended on a $2 timer to turn it off overnight. It didn't. Woke up in the morning, tried to take a shower, had no water. Ran my well dry. I not only did that once, I believe I did it, I know I did it twice. I could have done it more than twice. That is because our well, after doing a little research, although when we bought the property, our well has a 2 gallon per minute view. And from what I can find on the internet nowadays, I'm not sure how they let me build a home on that site, honestly, because it seems pretty low, based on the information I could gather. But anyhow, obviously, my concern with the rezoning, and I know we're not supposed to talk about the whatever may happen, but the development of what I consider commercial property, because as Mr. Ziegler was going through that, if you could page up a little bit, back to the special exceptions, I'm sorry, down maybe, there is a lot of that adult daycare, child daycare, group home, nursery school, nursing home, to me, that's commercial. So when you start introducing commercial into an area that may have very low yielding water, the usage of those facilities has got to be more than a residential home. So therefore, that is my concern. And secondly, the water is a very big concern. But secondly is, once again, back to what my wife said, I walk my property just about every night with my dog. I don't see a person. I see a home, see Frank Millar's home. It's beautiful, off in the distance. But other than that, I go in the woods, don't see anything. I don't see a car. I don't hear anything other than my dog and me yelling. That's what I'd like to see it stay. So I'm here talking tonight, and I would ask you as a board, because this rezoning does affect and allow at least the next step to any of those things happening within my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, whoever is in the next seat, if they want to speak, okay, move on. And that's fine just to say, yes, I agree with everything Steve said, and that seems to have reached to us.
My name is Charles Watson. I'm here with my wife Jennifer Watson. We own a lot at 23 McCullough Drive, with 3 houses on the hill. It's part of that 6 parcel lot being rezoned to suburban residential. I'm not going to hit on all the points that everyone else has hit on. I think they've covered it pretty well. I will just reiterate what a few of them have said, is that we bought this home 17 years ago. It has a wonderful view that everyone compliments us on. Right now, we look up on a farm in front of us, and across the way, a place that I think they use mainly as a horse pasture, and you guys are opening up the door to build on those lands. Okay? No one here has really come right out and said it. I don't want to see a house built on that property. Okay, much less opening the door for anything that could or could not be commercial. All right, we paid a lot of money, a lot of good money. We worked very hard to establish this life that we have, and the views that we have, and the land that we have. And we don't want to see it wrecked by what I perceive as the catalyst for this all, of this group home. I see the need for it. We need the group home. It doesn't need to be here. I don't think there's a person in this room that wants it there, or anything like it for that matter. So I'm saying no to the group home. I'm saying no to the rezoning. And I would appreciate it if you guys would consider everything everyone here is saying and keep our properties the way they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Who is the next person? Are we back in we'll start at the end of that row and just see if anybody wants to talk. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so anybody before this lady want to speak? You're up then.
Thank you. My name is Mary Streets, we live on Sideston Road, actually on McDonald Court. And indirectly, of course, it goes to the zoning area, but indirectly it goes to the rezoning. And so I would like to say that this rezoning was requested by an organization who wants to establish a group home in Sunlight Lane. The home initially built housed about 30 people. Our principal concern here is the future water supply, as that home's water needs with further expansion will be tremendous, considering that the houses on both sides of Sideston Road have private wells. According to the township, no public water supply for the area is planned. So my question is, why then rush to rezone prior to finding a solution to this all-important issue that surely has an effect on so many of our neighbors, and even more so when future expansions occur? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, if we go back to the end of the next row, and just move forward to the next person who wants to speak then.
Yeah, I guess my question is a little more, yeah.
Come up to the microphone, please.
My name is Dave Adamchuk. I live on 27 McCullough Drive, and my question is a little more specific. There's reference here to our road, the extension of McCullough Drive, which is not up to road standards. I'm wondering if there's any plans to upgrade that.
Not that I'm aware of.
Nothing planned.
No, I'd have to look at the subdivision plan, but I would assume it was probably identified as a private road.
Yeah.
So that's a remaining, if it's a private road, the township would do. The township would not adopt it unless it was brought up to standards of a public street.
Okay.
And that would have to be done by homeowners.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Who is the next person as we move through there? All right, we go back to the next row. Okay, one up.
Oh, I would like to be on the list, I'll be the last one if you want. Somebody asked me to say something, and I'll say it.
Okay, we'll come back to you then. We'll let this gentleman.
Okay. My name is Eric Schechter. I've been a resident of Sykesville Road for approximately a little over 29 years now. Before I talk about this particular zoning change, I want to give people, there's a lot of folks that are new to Sykesville Road here. I want to give them a little history lesson.
If you can do it quickly for us, just, I said if you can do it quickly for us.
I will, less than 5 minutes, I promise. Anyway, when we first moved here, one of the big drawing factors of us purchasing the house we bought was the fact that the land on the south side of Sykesville Road was conservation zoning. All properties had to have a minimum of 3 acres in order to have a building right. That was a huge seller because we were coming out of the city. I moved to the city, I did not like city living. Moved out of the city, came here because we wanted to have space. It was a wonderful place to live. There were deer, we still see some deer. There were fox, turkeys. I had never seen a wild turkey. It was a shock to me when I actually learned turkeys could fly. Anyway, years ago, a brilliant idea came up here for this board, and that was to change the zoning to agricultural. At the time, my wife and I were both concerned about that because we knew that change in zoning is usually not good, at least not for the people that live there. I was assured in private conversation with a member of the board that, oh no, changing it to agricultural, the land, there was a particular parcel which is now loaded with, I think, 9 houses. Right next to us, how many houses are on the former Jaeger tract? That it would not increase any of the building. Well, if it had stayed agricultural, that would have been fine. But several years back, maybe 7, 8, 10 years, the whole idea of TDRs, transferable development rights, came into the picture. And they started selling off development rights for this tract that only had, to begin with, I believe, 3 building rights. So now, my space was suddenly invaded. And my apologies to my neighbors. I know some of you, and you're there. I welcome you as a neighbor. But the whole idea of making another zoning change for the benefit, okay, New Life is going to benefit several people, but it always comes down to somebody stands to make money on the deal. That's what happened with the Jaeger tract, and it's going to be what's happening here. Somebody's going to make money. Who is making the money? My concern about having, even if it's only 8 people living in that house, that's 8 people, 8 cars, 8 people using the water supply. If there's 20, 30, even 45 people, as the attorney said, that's a lot of taxing on our resources. Traffic on that road, I don't believe the road can handle more traffic than what it already gets, being the bypass for Glen Rock. My child has to walk up and down that road to go to the bus every day. Are you going to put sidewalks on that road so that there's a place to walk safely? And this, I guess that's about all I have to say. Hopefully my wife will have something more to say.
Thank you very much. We just ask as we move along, if you're echoing something that's been said, just tell us that, maybe rather than repeat it, so that we can try to get through the night. But at any rate, who's next here that would like to speak? All right. Is there anybody before this gentleman? We've got everybody? Okay, go on up.
Good evening. My name is William Bridger. Live on Sykeston Road. I have just three concerns. I'm not really against development when it's warranted. And one of the things is the board sent a letter out, or somebody sent a letter out to the township a couple weeks ago saying the township wasn't going to be pursuing water and sewer there. If the zoning's changed to rural residential, does that then allow someone who has the property to request water and sewer to be extended to there? And if it was, how would that affect me? Am I required to tie into it? And who's going to pay the cost of it?
I guess we cannot stop anybody from requesting anything, but there are no plans whatsoever to do anything.
But in the triple R, do they request it in the triple R, or is that something that's be allowed if it's an RR?
I believe that with either one of the rural residential zones is to be with on-lot systems and not
Okay.
public water or sewer.
And the next one I kind of have a big concern with is when I gather in this room and all my neighbors, none of our neighbors, myself, requested this rezoning on Sykeston Road. So I find it abhorrent that the board would take a position from outside our neighborhood to rezone our neighborhood from someone outside the neighborhood. To me, that's just ludicrous.
Well, again, we haven't taken a position yet. That's why.
Not the position, but you went through the process of it.
We have to.
And part of what made me disturbed about that is your opening statement tonight, and it might have been a misstep in what you said. He says, what we're doing, not what we were asked to do.
Okay.
To me, that's a big difference.
That's a good point.
As far as that. And then the other one, we keep coming back to sewer, and everybody seems to keep deflecting what the sewer's put in there. Nobody wants to answer up for it. Everybody wants to say it was done before me. Is there any records that we can find about the sewer? What is allowed for it?
I've made a note for us to...
That's a big concern. It keeps coming up.
It was unfortunately long before...
And that's the only answer we've gotten all along. And I would like to get an official answer from the board on that if we can. I'm sure the rest of the residents would like to
Just
do
put
that
in
as well.
a request to note form to Todd, and he'll research it for you and get right back.
Okay. And then if they could, if there's...
I've made my own note to...
And if there's any limitations when that's done and documented, that any future limitations can be, whatever is be allowed to be restricted on it, because if it's something that's not there, because I think I was reading through the ordinance somewhere that you can't piggyback to get sewer through someone else's property. And basically, that's what that is. That's a piggyback through someone else's property to get the public sewer to his property. And I think the ordinance actually excludes.
There's other situations in the township where they've got sewer by going through somebody else's property. There's been, I know of other instances where they had a system failure. They got an easement through their neighbor's property to go tie into the sewer. That type of stuff does happen. Why this one occurred, I don't know. This goes back before I was on the board.
Okay.
And the other instances that I do know, I'm only familiar with them because it's near my residence. And I know of the individual that had the issue. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't even know about that.
But I made a note for us to check out and see what we can find.
All right, thank you.
The rural residential is not to have any public water or sewer. It's outside the growth area, as I understand it. So,
And correct me if I'm wrong, but in order for the property to be commercialized, it has to have public water and sewer.
not necessarily.
Okay.
It'd be like if you have a daycare center, which is very limited size and all, if the online systems can handle it, they can go forward.
Okay.
And I guess that ties into the part when you say that's why I had a failure sewer, they get permission to tie in. So if we're going to allow the zoning change, it's going to create the problem that we have to get permission to put public water in there. That's what we're doing, you know, putting potential, more houses, more development, more drain of water supply, that we fail the water supply, now to get special exemption to have water supply. It's almost like we're creating our own problem that we're going to solve later on by another exemption to allow public water to go there.
That's not in our plans.
And then I guess if that would happen, how does that affect, how does the zoning affect the people along that line that goes in? Are we required to tie in then? And who pays that cost?
Well, again, first of all, public utilities are not directly tied in with zoning. Just because it's zoned a particular zone, if there's a development that goes in, they're required, or they choose to put in public sewer or public water, it would be up to this board whether they mandate other property owners to do it. It wouldn't be the zoning ordinance that mandates existing homes to tie in.
So it'd be a development subdivision plan.
Like, for example, I know someone mentioned about a 25-acre lot for sale. You know, if they came in and put one of the lots in, there's 25 new homes, and for whatever reason, they worked out a deal with Glenrock Borough, and they ran a sewer main down Site Slim Road. Just because that housing development went in, you would not be mandated to connect to that unless that mandate came from this board. And give you an example, anyone's familiar with Strawberry Fields?
Yeah.
York Water's through there, and that's all voluntary. I'm not aware that the board has ever mandated anyone to hook up to public water. The only time that we've mandated sewer connections is when we were under an order by DEP, for example, the village of Sitesville. They had very small lots, failing systems everywhere. And that concentrated area, I think it might be 40 homes or something, they were mandated. But again, we were under the gun by Pennsylvania DEP to hook them up. So, but I think Strawberry Fields is a perfect example. York Water is run throughout that entire development, and not everyone is connected. And the township is not mandated.
It's available if they want it,
Right.
and then they had to hook it up themselves.
Right.
That was the property owner's expense if they wanted access to that. But it wasn't forced, it wasn't forced upon
So
them
they developed
in
that,
that
I would be
case.
forced to tie into it.
Say again?
I would be forced to tie into it.
I don't see, I wouldn't support forcing you to do anything.
Well, this area is outside the growth boundary.
It's what's separating the growth boundary of Sitesville Road.
That is the growth boundary.
Correct. Secondary growth boundary is separated by Sitesville Road.
Which side of Sitesville Road? The south side, what we're...
The north side is in the secondary growth boundary. The south side is right outside, adjacent to the growth boundary.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. But this property is outside the growth boundary.
Correct. The growth boundary is on the opposite side.
We have a policy where no public water or sewer can be extended outside the growth boundary, and also a policy where resource conservation rule. This zone cannot accept, as indicated earlier, do not have public water. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Larry DeBell on Ridgewood Road. I'm looking at the list here on some of these things I'm not familiar with it, but what exceptions will allow group quarters and cultural facilities are two of the things mentioned. I'm afraid if this goes through, you guys are going to open up a Pandora's box. I have no objection to this man turning his home over so that 8 people can come from the children's home to live there. However, once you get to the point where you've allowed them to expand these facilities, as someone else said, there's 25 acres for sale. I don't know what the criteria is for these other things, but I'm afraid you're going to get a situation where we have drug rehabilitation facilities there, people trying to rehabilitate convicted convicts, things of that nature, and we live in a very low crime area. What this is going to, I'm afraid what this will do is put increased pressure on the state police force, and they're going to tell Shrewsbury Township, You guys created this debacle by allowing this. Now you need to create your own police force, which is going to put an extra burden on all the taxpayers in this township. But the biggest issue that I have is if this all is allowed to go through, you have thousands of students a stone's throw away from all of this, sitting on the other side of the hill and at the school. And the access to that school is extremely easy for someone to sneak through that woods undetected and get in. They can go right to the traffic fields, right there where these kids are having activities after school. If you think this room is packed now, you wait until you have someone trying to put a facility like that in that area, and you won't be able to get on cars in the parking lot because you're going to have every parent in the area outraged over it.
Are you trying to scare us?
What's that?
Are you trying to scare us?
No, sir. I'm just telling you the reality of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next in line if we want to speak? If we just follow anybody else on this side of the room? Okay, how about if we start at the front of this side of the room? Do we have anybody here that wants to speak?
Hi, my name is Jan Starmuller. My husband and I don't live on Siteson Road, but we live on Manchester Street. As I was driving on Siteson Road, I saw the little signs and I got really concerned because it's my neighborhood. It's not my immediate neighborhood, but it's a beautiful place. So I wrote down the number and I went home and I got in my driveway. And as soon as I did, the field across from my backyard, I saw another one of those signs. That lovely couple lives in the 3 houses on the hill. We live in the house down the hill across the way. So, same view, same concerns. I'm not going to repeat those. One thing I haven't heard mentioned is you're talking about rural residential and rural residential receiving. But those 6 parcels are considering rezoning them as suburban residential, and when I read the possibilities for that, I become concerned. Now, I have no crystal ball. I can't predict what's going to happen in the future, but I think it would be unwise if I didn't predict what might happen. It's only 6 parcels. It's not a huge amount, but it allows for townhomes and apartments. This has me greatly concerned. Once you lose the farmland, you've lost it. You're not going to get it back. And no one's going to knock down houses or apartments because 5 years from now they want to grow corn. Farmland's gone. With that herd of 11 deer that I was watching through my binoculars last night, they're gone. All the hawks that are flying around looking for the mice on the field eating the corn, they're gone. The peace and quiet's gone. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else in that row? The next row back? Okay.
Can you just bring up your map of the different areas? I'm Chuck Muller, I'm Jan's husband. Yeah, that one there. I'm looking at McCullough Road going across.
Here's a pointer if that helps.
It might. I'm looking at McCullough Road going across here, and I'm looking at this is all agriculture, am I understanding that correct?
That's correct.
It's green? And why are we gonna plug in 2 suburban residential, 3 suburban residential areas and just shoehorn them right into an agricultural area? That's my big question. It's farmland. I love driving through the farmland. I'm suburban, born and bred. But I've come to love this area, and I love the people's places going up the hill. I walk up Siteson and Jennifer Ave Road, and all those areas. And to see that change in the midst of all the agricultural areas, to just arbitrarily change that over to residential, being able to, as my wife said, plug in high-density townhomes.
Are those areas outside the growth, the agricultural areas outside the growth boundary?
I believe they are. I do just want to make a point, this particular 8-acre tract here at the end of the McCullough Drive, even if it stays and it does not change, there are 3 development rights that gentleman owns, that he could do a subdivision with those.
Yeah, throw a little bit in there. We've lived there about 17 years now. They've had those rights for years.
Yeah.
It's sounds to me that by rezoning it to suburban residential, it just makes it a little easier for that to happen.
It doesn't. It doesn't really, but I'm not in favor of rezoning agricultural land. But
Okay,
Yeah, you're talking 3 farms there.
thank you. Next road, we have somebody.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm not going to go into any detail. My name is Donna Schweitzer. I live at 4082 Manchester Street, right at the corner of Sykesland and Manchester Street. I bought my grandmother's house because I wanted to come back to Glen Rock, to the town, to the suburb, not the suburbs. I wanted to come back to the rural, and I'm concerned about the water supply, extra traffic on the road, and the sewer, if that would ever come about. But I'm afraid if we start changing to one thing, it's going to catapult to something else and to something else. So just want to be concerned about starting the change and where it can lead to.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else in that row?
Hi, my name's Frederica Mundus. I live on 4080 Manchester Street. The house was built in 1947 by my grandparents and my aunts and uncle, and I acquired it 20 plus years ago from my one aunt. These people that are speaking are very heartwarming to me. I don't know them, they're my neighbors up on the hill, but everything they said is true. Now, if any of you, and I know some of you, are on farms or were, and had the enjoyment of deer, bluebirds, turkeys that have been there ever since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. The gentleman that said about the woods and walking over to the school, we used to walk through those woods. My sister was 8 years older, and the people that lived there then were older than me. And we could go through those woods to the high school. So everything that these people are bringing to you about the beauty of the land and wanting to keep it that way, and yeah, you say you're not there yet. But this is what this is about. You're not there yet. They aren't going to wait. They shouldn't have to wait till you are there to make the decision. This is what this is about. Hearing these people out and how much they never grew up in Glen Rock. I grew up in Glen Rock. And my family grew up in Glen Rock. It was the Stablers. And it's just and hearing that they didn't have water, I never knew that. And I have a well, and we've never gone dry, even in the worst droughts. I can't imagine these people going without water in their brand new homes that they dreamed about and worked very hard for and keep nice and neat back through there. And just driving down Sykesland and seeing all that, I enjoy their homes, just looking at them or see them walk when they walk or walk their dogs or whatever. And I want to keep it that way too. And it shouldn't be put into apartments or condos. And you are asking for a Pandora's box to open up if you go this route.
Thank you. Anybody else in the next row or the one behind? Okay, everybody's had a chance to speak. Did you want to?
I changed my mind.
Okay.
His wife told me couldn't know.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't want to get into a debate on that.
No, it'll be 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Okay. All right, I need to give you that. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. I really forgot I had moved
That's
on.
okay. For the record, my name is Rachel Stahl. I am the director of New Life Center for Mothers and Children. And can I turn?
Sure.
Okay. And I just want to address the ones that are concerned for what is going up in our ideal vision and moving forward. Without going into the details of the program, I'm sure some of you know who we are and some of you don't. I was a 16-year drug addict and who lost everything in her entire life. I was a professional, I was a nurse.
And so this ministry has completely restored and redeemed me, and I have a passion to want to see other women break free. And we have a 75% success rate within our program. The law is that we can only have 25 residents within the group home setting that we are trying to establish. And the phase of this program, there will not be multiple cars that will be in and out of the facility. It's at a phase where that's just not going to be the case within this part of the program. And so the drug epidemic, everybody is always crying and, you know, and shouting out how bad our drug epidemic is in Southern York County. And we right here in your backyard are making a difference. Yes. We're only 4 minutes from that property right now. We have been in that.
Why are you moving?
To expand.
To expand.
To expand. To help more women, because I mean, as you can see, the drug, and I'm just saying who I am. My name is Terry Shepard, I'm the assistant director, and I too have a testimony that is very similar to Rachel's, and I know many of you because my son plays sports with some of your kids, and I've seen teachers and things like that, so I know who a lot of you are. I'm not going to go into too much of that, but our vision is to expand to help more people just like us. Just like us. And if we're only allowed to have 8 people, that's one family in addition to the staff. That's one family.
But water is our concern. We're all wells. When you add 25 people in that big house, that puts a burden on our wells.
And I understand, and I did not understand that until this evening.
Right.
Okay, that wasn't even, hold on, that wasn't even in our minds, you know, but.
It's something more than a group home too, guys. It's
Well,
not.
but the point here tonight was brought up. You brought up that there could be possibly 95 people, and that's just not a possibility. The max capacity that we would be able to have in this facility would be 25. And we can only talk about that. Well, it's in the zoning
Let's
laws,
let
that's what we were told.
This group speak, everybody else had their chance to
Yeah.
speak uninterrupted.
So it's
I would
in the-
ask you to try to.
Yes, I will, yeah. So it's in,
Told you that.
the zoning representative.
Keith. We met with people from different areas. We went with Todd and we met with Keith Hutchinson from over at, I don't know the name of the place, but it's over there on Main Street. We don't know what's going to happen with every other property. All we can tell you is what happened, what Mr. Rodick is willing to bless, not just us with as a ministry, but our community as a whole. We are seeking the answer to be able to help more women. This has come up. This is something that we want to pursue. We're hoping that you guys can get on board. It is not our desire to have 90 people. That's not something that we as a staff could even comprehend. 25 is a lot.
And who, the gentleman that shared about the concerns with the school, our children go to that school.
Yes, they do.
She's a teacher for some of our children. And so we have already been in the community, literally, I'm 3 minutes from that property on
Yes.
Sunlight Lane. I have not had not one issue in the community over 40 years. And everybody in my community in that area will vouch for that.
Yes.
We have all of our community on that side of Glenrock support. Because what we are doing is we are making a difference within our communities. I understand that there's a concern for the water. I did not understand that that was a concern. I had no idea that would be an issue. We're not here to try to come in and change your neighborhood, make it bad. When you walk down the street, when you walk down my street, whoever said that with their dog, it's the same thing where we're at now. We desire those things too. We are teaching these women to be good citizens. Okay, 75% of our women are going out, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're lawyers. I was a nurse. Okay, so these women, yes, some of them are felons, but they're restored and they're redeemed. And they change their life through this program. Hundreds and hundreds of women who are in your communities right now that have come through this ministry and are making a difference in our communities.
Well, there are very much concern about the water supply.
Yes.
I ask you this, where you're located now at Ballard Street, can there be expansion there?
We're going to use that property as well.
No, he needs to
Can
build
that be
on.
expanded?
No, we don't plan on building on.
No.
There's no need to build on. And in fact,
If this didn't happen,
Yeah.
and it's offered to you, would he be expanded?
We have 3 families.
no, because we can't, no, we would not. And so every property that we have had has been blessed to us. We've had multiple over the years. And so I don't know how many people of faith in this room, but we believe that God has opened this door for us to be able to expand and to reach more of his broken and lost children.
If I can interrupt, I think we've gotten too much into the
Okay.
whole and away from the
So,
zoning.
just lastly, I just wanted to share my heart. We're not here to take your community. You know, we're praying for your support. We're praying for your support and wanting to be a part of what we're doing and how we're making a difference.
Thank you.
You made that point well,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. And I think everybody's had a chance to speak. We've
I have a specific question before.
used an hour and a half for this.
Mr. Pace wants to speak.
Did we miss you back there?
Yes, you did. That's okay.
Okay, this will be our last speaker. So,
Question for Todd then.
can you ask her while this gentleman comes up?
I'd like to think negative, but if this did get passed, and I understand the Clean Water Act mandates that on a well system, you have to have an environmental water study for 25 people or more to make sure that well and the underground water system could handle that situation.
I don't know the answer to that question. Keith Huddings, our zoning officer, is probably more familiar with that. But if you give me your contact information, I can try to find an answer for you.
Just to answer the question, it's the Federal Clean Water Act, and it's adopted by the state, I think, under 25 PA code. Forget the section, it's chapter 209. They have very specific regulations. If they qualify as a public water system, and reading the EPA definitions of 25 may. So then, there's much more regulations that will come in. So that's something very important.
Okay. Sir, come on up, please. Thank you. Sorry we kept you waiting. Sorry we kept you waiting.
Hi, my name is Chris Price.
Hi.
I've got a question for you, and I didn't do my research, so I'll throw it over you. How much ground do we have in Shrewsbury that is zoned for residential?
Without looking at some maps and doing some work, I don't know those numbers off the top of my head.
It's not a major zoning area, it's a relatively small area, unlike agriculture or residential area.
And we could probably find that out, but sitting here, we just don't know that.
But there is room, there is rural residential areas that could be developed for your specific needs.
Most of it is fully developed, is the talk about most of our rural residential is pretty much fully developed.
Rural residential or receiving?
The rural residential is pretty much fully developed.
I mean, they could, they could also,
We could look at that, but that's a little bit outside probably our zoning issue for.
yeah, I mean,
understanding
group
the question.
homes greater than 8 people are permitted in many zones beyond rural residential. In fact, everything on the north side of Sykesland Road, everything around Glenrock Borough, that's all suburban residential, and group homes of more than 8 can go in there as well, by special exception.
Okay.
Well, the concern I had is that if we're rezoning a large tract of ground for really one specific purpose, I don't think that's fair. There's a lot of homeowners that are going to lose value. And I have no disrespect for what you folks are doing. I have a daughter who is an alcoholic, so I'm very much with you. But I think that we have to look at the broader picture. Does that make sense? That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll bring the public hearing to a close, and I'll take just a little consultation with the board. We have a formal meeting now. Sure.
Can I ask one quick question? How's everybody's well now?
Excuse me?
How is everyone's well now? Is everybody in decent
Good.
shape as
Good
far as
at the
we know?
moment. Adequate.
Yeah, water pressure is not,
No, right, water pressure.
Water pressure's
Water's
not
there, but there's little to no pressure behind it.
I don't leave my sprinkler on all night.
How many of you are on well? Pretty much all of you.
That's why they're concerned.
You don't want public to
Yes, sir.
Plus, I have 3 more lots in there that would be well.
Sir,
Okay.
I was under the impression that the Glenrock sewage plant is at capacity at this point. And what happens if our septics fail?
It's not at the past.
It is not?
Could you,
They just had a upgrade recently.
you're our resident sewer expert. I would like your informed opinion.
I really want to stay out of this one.
This is Glenrock.
It's Glenrock sewer, I hear the system, it's up to par, it's not out of capacity, I'm sure of that. But, you know, that is Glenrock's system, the water's their system and the sewer's their system. This is the township has no control over that sewer water system. You know, they're not gonna extend it, they don't have any control over extending it, so it's not kind of a non-issue.
Can I just address a couple of comments that were made from a staff standpoint and how we came about with our recommendation? One thing the Attorney Schultes mentioned about the comp plan being a guide, and I think that's an important key to keep in mind because that's what it is it is a guide. It's not regulatory, it's not the law. The zoning ordinance is. When we had taken a look at this, you know, one thing we looked at, we had considered rezoning it to a suburban residential, but as you know by this chart, that opens up many, many, many more doors than it being rural residential versus residential receiving. And 2 other things I wanted to mention because there's something that a couple people have brought up, and we had a discussion about this, was about these additional uses here, which, you know, could be pretty large facilities. You know, the probability of them coming in, and again, that's what I was referring to about with the crystal ball. Every one of those parcels out there that is empty can have at least a 1 acre lot put on it. So at 25 acres that's for sale, you could end up seeing 20 homes in there. I mean, that's a possibility. And there's nothing we can do about that. You know, that will generate more traffic and so forth. But something to keep in mind with these larger, much larger uses, and again, it was brought up during the meeting regarding the rural residential with the zoning ordinance. I mean, it states up there that you can only use on-lot septic and water. So, you know, if you go to bring in a 50-bed nursing home or something, you know, they're going to have to make sure they have the facilities, they're going to have to make sure they have, I don't know if anyone ever saw an on-lot septic system for a 50-bed hospital. It's incomprehensible. It's just the cost. So, I mean, those types of things are really going to limit those potential commercial uses.
So then why change?
But do open the door for it.
Right, okay. But my point is, you know, where staff was looking as well, if you look at the uses by right that anyone can do today, they can do tomorrow. All those uses that are highlighted in yellow, going from rural residential, receiving to rural residential, all those that are highlighted, you can do those today. And you can have the same impact.
But only 8 residents, not 25.
I'm not, you gotta remember, when we as staff look at zoning, we were not looking at the group home. We were looking at all 26 parcels that are zoned rural residential receiving. And we looked at that as a broad picture. We didn't look at a group home. So I just want to give you a little background.
The whole issue came up because of that, you were approached with that.
That is correct, and I think I told everybody that, and I think I started out with that. That's what prompted the discussion with the board. That group did not come to the board and say, will you please rezone?
Right.
They came and asked questions, the board got into discussion, staff got into discussion, and we looked at that. You know, I think another gentleman had mentioned, you know, there were 6, 8 lots developed on a smaller parcel. You know, so we looked at there is growth in that area, and there is the potential for growth. So that's where staff is coming from. That's all I had.
All right, well, I want to thank everybody for your comments and for coming out. We certainly listened It's the first, I think, any of us heard or aware of a water problem in your wells. That was not something that I believe anybody here on the board was aware of, and that's certainly a potential problem. Could be a problem whether there's any other thing built there or not as time goes on, but we appreciate your comments. We've got a lot of information to digest. I'm not sure it would be the will of the board to actually vote on anything tonight until we have time to kind of digest this information and do it better and look at that portfolio and understand the water problem a little better. So it would be my recommendation that we would postpone any vote.
I'll make a motion that.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second.
Just to be clear, that was to postpone action till a later date.
Yes, that's
Till a later date.
Give us an opportunity to study some of the information we've got tonight.
Right.
Okay, any other questions? The vote? The vote again is to postpone any action on this ordinance implementation until a later date.
Aye.
Aye? Aye. Aye. By votes to
You
the...
give us a lot of information that we have to seriously reflect on.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your time.
Obviously, this is very near and dear to us, many of us. And how do we know when your next meeting is so we can attend? And do you just keep looking at the website or do you have dates?
First Wednesday month, we will most likely look at it next month.
And our agenda is posted on our website that Friday prior to the first Wednesday.
Quick question. That vote you're postponing, does that have to be postponed to a public meeting, or can that vote happen next week, tomorrow?
Public meeting.
It has to happen it doesn't need to be advertised or anything because we're just postponing the vote. And the next time we meet would be a month from now, so that would be the first opportunity to look at it. Okay?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Making this way to the world, we've got a whole big agenda to get through Call me back to order, please. If you're leaving us, thanks for being here. We need to move forward. All right, we get back to our normal agenda, which are only the second line here.
The baseball guys can find a seat. It was a little tight in here. We're gonna try to move along.
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is in the order that they're in the agenda now, if there are people here, the way that we're gonna take you first in the order that they're on the agenda, and then we'll come back and pick up the rest. Can we do that before we approve our meeting minutes and things too? Okay. So I guess the first thing, is there anybody here in our, I guess Todd first would be subdivision and land development? We'll honor your presence a little earlier.
Thank you.
This is for Jason Denaya subdivision, and I think, Todd, you're going to introduce it to us.
Actually, Jason Brennan is here, the engineer.
He's going to run it himself? Okay.
I'll keep this short. Basically, as the board's aware of, it's a 11 lot subdivision plan, 10 new residential lots along West Forest Avenue, along with the residual piece. We've been to board with the previous waiver requests. We're providing public water, public sewer from Shrewsbury Borough. That's all been worked out. Previous waivers were approved. There's 2 additional waivers after work through the staff and the planning commission. The 2 additional waivers are on the erosion control plan and stormwater management pushed back to the building permit stage. The types of houses are unknown, so it's very difficult to design stormwater and erosion control at this point of time. So we're just asking for individual stormwater plans and individual ENS plans be created at building permit stage. Other than that, I think most of the comments have been addressed. There might be a couple admin comments left, signatures, but other than that, I'll pass it over to the board. If you guys have any questions, I can answer them. We can go from there.
I know there's been a lot of discussion in the past, as you know, amongst the staff and others on the desirability of a whole lot stormwater versus individual lots. And I guess I would just say, personally, I'm reluctant to look at it on an individual lot basis because that's given us trouble in the past. I don't believe we have any reason that we would be able to deny the lot by lot basis. There's no ordinance issue or no other, so just to the board, it would seem like we wouldn't have a reason to deny that. And that's essentially the waivers, that's what they're about.
Correct. Well, they just postpone the inevitable.
Yeah, it's going to happen. And
are you going to have downspouts that infiltrate the water in the ground?
yeah, most likely there will be seepage pits. Like I said, we have no idea what size of houses they're going to propose, so it's very hard to design seepage pits at this point in time. So everything will be pushed off and...
It's based on the roof side.
Correct.
Staff was in support of the waivers.
Reluctantly, but yes.
And also, for everybody here's information.
Comfort.
These lots are a collection of rights from the agricultural areas that this property owner owns. So instead of having to scatter all over our farmland, they're clustered along a road, across the road, which is a major subdivision. Keeping all the looking together.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2 waiver requests.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Go ahead and vote on that.
Aye.
I don't know where we're headed with this, I'm going to say no.
Aye. Aye. Mine is a reluctant aye. I believe it's what we are.
There's a lot too.
It's just a
But it's still
lazy,
counts.
it's just a lazy inevitable. It doesn't waive anything permanently. That's what we
And then I guess additionally, we would be requesting conditional plan, recommendation, or not recommendation, actually conditional plan approval based upon any outstanding comments.
There are still outstanding comments.
Yeah, first thing I would ask you to do is you will approve the development rate transfers. Basically, this is going to pull all the development rates on all the contiguous parcels that Jason owns and assign them to this. So I gave you a chart that shows where the development rates will be coming from, which parcels, and where they will be going to.
It's good, thanks, Joe.
So if you could do that, and then if you could take action regarding the plan itself, and I would just make a condition upon the September 25th, 2018 letter, which was revised January 7th, 2019.
I'll make a motion that we approve the transfer of the development rights as Todd has outlined to us.
Second.
Questions? Vote.
Aye.
Aye? Aye. Five votes to the affirmative, they are approved. And that brings us to the subdivision plan. I would make a motion that we approve that based on all of the outstanding issues per the September 25th letter from C.S. Davidson.
Did you make that motion?
I made that motion.
I'll second your motion.
We have a second. Questions from the board? We'll vote.
Aye.
Aye? Aye. Five votes to the affirmative, the subdivision plan.
I think one quick comment after the fact. You know, this is a cluster development, but it's an undesirable cluster in the sense that when you have a cluster like that, like more of a block of homes, but under the circumstances, it's the best.
Saves farmland.
Yeah, it saves farmland, which is very good farmland, it's right behind it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see Steel Farms on next, but I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it's just, if it's 3 months, because county won't accept
No problem.
the newer date, so this is more of a formality. We've already approved this conditionally, the plan's not.
Do we need to go out 3 months or more?
As far as I know his plans were to start construction in February. Obviously, it's now April, but he had another project actually in Maryland that he was working on, so I think everything's been pushed back. He's looking at possibly starting construction in August now. So, and yeah, that's the last I heard. I haven't talked to him for a while.
It expires now, when?
3 months, so if you do 6 months and he gets everything in here.
I think the only outstanding thing is the bonding.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's nothing significant, but nonetheless,
It
it's.
sounds like we should consider 6 months.
Because he can come in before that. If you
Right,
got it.
right. But if it makes it good for 6
Then
months, if you
I'll
continue to.
make a motion to extend it 6 months.
I'll second.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll just say maybe we could go forward.
This way we don't have to deal with it in 4 months if he doesn't get it in 4, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, if he gets everything in 4, he can still come in, we can do everything we need to do at that point. This just gives him an extra 2 months.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Other questions? We'll vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Five votes to the affirmative, so we have some 6 months.
Thank you.
All right, Todd, we're trying to walk through here, I guess, it's fine here for,
I think we would do the reference
later. Okay.
I see representatives.
Okay. All right, we're going to skip to old business just to accommodate people who are here given the lengthy public hearing. So the item, and I believe we have some people here from on the refuge and recycling bid. Todd, I'd like to introduce that.
Yeah, give everyone a copy of that. There you go, everyone's interested.
They're expecting that the cost of it is
We put it out for bid for a 3-year contract. The bids were broken down into each of the individual 3 years, and then there's 2 additional optional years, which is at the discretion of the township. Across the board, Republic Services was the lowest bidder. So for the first year, which would start July 1st of this year, for full service, which you can put out the one large trash item and so forth, is Republic Services at $279.60. Penn Waste was $290.40, and our current rate is $253.48, just to give you an idea.
That's not terrible.
We are in year 5 at this point?
Yes.
Just for
Definitely.
the record, yes.
We are currently in year 5 at this point.
Yes, the
So
current
there's no
contract.
option for
extending or not for
65
the
years.
year.
It expires June 30th. So they're the apparent low bidder. Someone had asked me the question about if it could be rebid. I don't know if there's merit for that. I guess it is if you're not happy with those prices and you think they're too high, but they're the only two bidders.
How many firms did you send a bid?
Well, we advertised in the newspapers, were required by law, and then we sent bids to Republic Services and Penn Waste. They're the only two that I'm familiar that serve this area.
Do we know, obviously, you're always a little nervous when you make changes for something that I would say has gone pretty well over those 5 years. Do we have any information on, I guess, the reputation of Republic Service? And do they serve anyone in the area here? Any adjacent municipalities?
Yeah, there's a gentleman here
Yeah.
from Republic.
Do you want to check?
Sure.
Please.
We service East Oakville Township, Windsor Township, North Dolores Township, I believe where you live. So we do it in the area. We also do York City, West York Borough, and we get up into Cumberland County as well.
You do Shrewsbury Borough too, eh?
We just lost that in February. That was just out of bid, and Penn Waste was the bottom number on that one. So
You did make that mistake again. You
we
have
do
to
know
cover.
Borough as well.
How's the service style?
My service is fine.
Very diplomatic answer.
We know.
I did send out an email to the York County Municipal Administrators Association and asked if anyone used currently or in the recent past the low bidder, which is Republic Services. And I did get feedback from West Mannheim. You have them?
We used to, but probably been
Did you have them?
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago at this point.
Maybe you misunderstood me, but anyway, yeah, it was in the West Mannheim.
But you got no negative feedback?
No, and I did hear back from Shrewsbury Borough, who did have them, and they had nothing negative to say. They did give me a name of who we should ask for as a route supervisor, if it is awarded, so.
There were no exceptions by either one to the bid specifications? So this still
The bid bonds were all in order.
Still includes picking up one large item a week and all those things that we're getting.
It offers the 26.
Yes, it's the full service as well as the paid per bag. They also would need to provide each resident with the 64-gallon toter for recycling as well.
At no charge to the
At no
resident.
change.
What would we do with the old ones if we want?
I would assume Penn
They
Waste.
take back.
You have to clap.
Okay. I was concerned that the price jumps up so much from year to year. I feel like by the time we get to year 5, we're 50 or in one case $70 more than the other one. Oh, poor math skills, $60 more than the other one.
But I don't think there are many other options around.
The only other option you have for bidding is you could bid for a 3-year contract, but there's the equal amount across each year. So they'd have to sharpen their pencils, but, you know, it's...
I was gonna see if anyone wanted to lock in at the 3-year maximum for years 4 and 5. I don't know if I can legally do that or not, but...
Not at this point.
This has been the trend too of municipalities in the county to go in this format.
Gotcha.
Because what happens when you go to a 3 or 5-year fixed rate, we got to build a lot of extra risk into our pricing up front that in the first couple of years. So this way it allows us to kind of gradually build that in. Helps us to offset our increase in cost of doing business every year too, by doing it like this. So.
Okay.
Well, I think that I would say to Penn Waste that we've been very happy with the performance. I've worked with us very well on some issues we have, and trash blowing and things like that, so.
May I address the board, please? May I address the board?
Sure, if you wish to.
Thank you. My name is Ed Ward. I'm the general manager at Penn Waste. And we have had a contract for, I believe, 15 years. So first of all, thank you for allowing us to service the township. Obviously, we're not the low bid. Somebody mentioned, I think Todd, the possibility of a rebid. The one thing I'm going to ask you for consideration, and it really revolves around the low volume accounts. It's something to consider. We call it recycle-only service. Right now, folks that are on the low-volume service have to buy 26 bags a year, no matter what. So there's probably folks that are complaining, I don't use 26 bags. The recycle-only service works. You only pay for a recycling service and buy the bags you need. You could buy 1, you could buy 10, I could buy 25 if I'm in the township. So it keeps the cost down. It's something for you to consider. I mean, obviously, we're not the low bid. I'd love an opportunity to rebid, but it's something to consider. It's in place in places like Dolores Township. I'm drawing a blank on the other one. There's 2 or 3 in York County that have that service. But again,
When did this happen? When did this start? When did you get started on it?
well, Cadorus, we've been in there at least the last 3 years, but they used to have a program similar to yours. And what I mentioned about folks saying, I don't use all the bags. And I'd like to buy 5 bags instead of 26 bags. That's who it benefits. But again, we'd love the opportunity on a rebid. I know it's your choice. I just thank you for at least hearing me out and the consideration.
Is there any number on that? I mean, can you pick any number, or do you do in increments of 5 or something?
You can pick any number. You all want. But again, you're paying for.
You pay per bag now.
You pay per bag, but and there's a.
So you cut the 208 by 26, and that's how much each bag costs?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
When you say, a rebid, you're suggesting that we ask for, any and all firms to rebid?
Yes. You have time. July 1st is the start date. And,
Agreed. I'm slightly concerned though, now that we know what that both of you know what the bids are.
Yep.
Obviously. I don't know if that's fair. However, it would almost guarantee it to be a cheaper rate.
I will tell you, it's happened before. It's not an uncommon thing.
I return to our solicitor.
Personally, I'd like to get the 3 of us in a room together and do a reverse auction and see how low you go, but I don't think we can legally do that.
Not that.
If the bid results came the other way, would we be having a discussion that you should reject the bid so that you could do a lower bag service? That should have been discussed prior to the bid specs.
I didn't even know the bag thing was a thing.
I think probably it should have been offered if that was, something that would help us, it could have been offered as part of the bid. I guess I would look at the solicitor and say, you've got 2 responsive bids. We don't have any concrete information that things wouldn't work with Republic. We have a contract in place, and if it doesn't work, we can fix it. But I wouldn't think we have any reason not to award to the lowest bidder here.
Well, I will speak to you only briefly, and first I'll say that I appreciate the comments you made, Mr. Gross, in jest.
Naturally.
Thank you. Please understand the delicacy of trying to address the rebidding steps, etc. The whole purpose of your bidding process is to do something that's in the best interest of the township, but also something that is fair. And that is why there are so few variables in your bidding steps, right? Everything is supposed to be the same except for the price, right? Price is not the only issue that you address when you think about which bid is the best, but it is by far the most important. And in my opinion, my legal opinion, for you to disregard the fact that you have clear low bidders and to seek to rebid it would be problematic for the township going forward. We do this process so that you can connect with some good prices and pass these savings on to your citizens. And if you want to do a rebid, I would suggest that that's something you're going to be thinking about after 3 years.
Do we have numbers on what the annual rates have been for the last 5?
We do, I don't have them with me.
Okay.
I don't recall.
Because That would be useful information, knowing how much it's jumped up in that time period, to see if these rates coincide with that inflation.
While it is interesting information, Mr. Rose, I'm not certain that it is relevant to what's in front of you, right? We know what the prices were before. You did a competitive bid process to try and get the best bid going forward for the next 3 years. And you have responsive bids. You have 2 responsive bids, which is often 1 bid more than we get in trash bid. So,
But Tim, we have a responsibility, right, to get the best deal that we can. So how do you foresee this being problematic if we suggest a new bid? Are you saying that it opens us up for every bid down the road being done multiple times?
Well, basically, this is the process which has been followed, and there's going to be a winner there. To me, I mean, we can't now say, well, we don't like this.
It's like giving Ben ways to do over.
it would create the impression of an unfair process.
Agreed.
Percentage increase that our low bid is compared to the common rate is really competitive in today's market. I mean, we've been seeing bids between 14 and up to 40% increase in the York, Lancaster, and Cumberland County market. So 8% I think is about where we are above your incumbent rate on the regular service. So it's probably one of the most competitive, or the lowest increases we've seen.
Do you two offer the single bag feature?
Recycling.
We usually offer whatever the township bid specs are. And this one is 26. Most of them.
We did not have that in the bid specs.
We didn't know about it.
Ah.
I mean, we had no idea if that was a third alternative.
Aha.
Otherwise, we would have had it in there.
Yeah, we need to.
Shirley?
Do I have to come forward and talk, or can I talk from here?
It
I do-
depends,
I
are
do-
you currently?
Actually.
Okay.
I do use the bags, and I liked what he said because I don't use 26.
Mhm.
By the time the bill comes out, I still have almost a whole roll of them left. Is that something you could ask him if he could do? Buy per bag, is that what?
I think we need to change our requirements in order for that to meet, but I'm guessing you bid based on 26 and full. So basically, I guess our question to you would be, is there any flexibility there? Could we do the per bag thing?
I don't know that that's allowable because of what the bid specs are. I mean, and so many, I think 200 residents use that. The majority of the township has the regular service, so
Which would mean it's not going to be an increased difficulty for you since it's a lower number of people, but it would be an increased service to some residents.
Yeah, I end up with bags left over for the next cycle,
well,
and I never get caught up.
Could we,
I mean, is that something that we could discuss once we make an order? I mean, I don't think we can open that bag based on the decision here, but I assume if you get the award, we could come back to you and say, could you go back to your powers to be and see if you could implement?
I think that would be more for the solicitor. I don't think that's really something we can renegotiate after the fact.
could we accept?
Well, sure, you always can after the fact. There's
So
nothing-
let me just, could we accept the low bid for 1 year and then rebid it?
No, it says it's
It's locked.
Did I understand that Republic Services would offer per bag? Like 1 bag or 3 bags?
Most of the municipalities that have some sort of bag limit, whether it be 13 a year, 12 a year. This is the first one I've seen was 26, but most of them I think.
Well, let's deal with what we have in front of us.
Gina, do you have something on the
That's what we're looking at. And,
Unbelievable.
What's unbelievable?
That, you know, we set up a way of doing business. You set these guys up, you give them the bid, you tell them what you want them to bid on, and now you have 2 reputable companies giving you the bid.
Gene, that's what the board's here for, please. I appreciate what you're saying, we're trying to get through it.
Sorry, I asked a question.
I would go ahead and make a motion that we make the award to Republic Services based on the prices we've got here. That's my motion. Second. Further discussion?
I have a comment. The transition is difficult sometimes. And I'm going to ask her right now, probably, you have to assure us that you're going to make it a very smooth transition.
This happens all the time. We just transitioned with them into Shrewsbury Borough. 2 months before that, we transitioned Hillborough from them to us.
I just want the minutes to reflect the fact that that's a point that has been made by this board, that we expect a very smooth transition in every respect of the job.
It's what we do, it's our business.
We have contracted and able to make sure
For the
that
next time that we lay this out.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? We shall vote.
Aye.
Aye? Aye. Aye. 5 votes to the affirmative. Welcome aboard. We appreciate what you did over the years, and it comes up again.
I mean, 10 Ways has done an incredible job for us, and we appreciate your effort in the past, and maybe the future will bode well for you.
All right, you're good.
Thank you.
Just to move down on this list for people that may be here, not that we have anybody here prior to the last lot C group.
I see one individual regarding the road closure. I will ask this of the board. I did receive a phone call from the Knowles, who live on Thompsonburg, who one of the property owners affected. And they would like to be part of the conversation. Unfortunately, they couldn't be at tonight's meeting, so they asked if it could be tabled until next month. There's no urgency in pursuing this, so I said I would pass that on to the board.
I apologize for my confusion. What number are we on?
11.
Under old business.
Thank you. Got it.
I mean,
Would you let, I get very tired of hearing that, so this is very important to us, really very, very important, but we can't make a meeting. Well, I always say, well, if it's so important, there's been a death in the county, then you would be here.
recognized.
Does whoever's here want to speak? There's somebody here who had.
Well, if we're not going to,
They can't be here.
She's a neighbor, maybe she can talk.
all right.
Would you like to address the board?
Who, myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Kevin is here as well, so.
I was just here just in
I
case
didn't
something
see you
came
back
up.
there.
Yes,
So we're both here, we're just wondering where we stand in the closure. Kevin, if you want to come up here. and
Well, I can,
speak to
yeah.
us, then we were just wondering where we stood. I know last time we were meeting, there were some questions, but,
What I was conveying to the board was I had a phone call from your neighbors, the Knowles, and they had some questions and some concerns, and they wanted to participate in the conversation with the board. And they asked if we could postpone any action until next month. But since you're both here, and your neighbors,
Yeah.
maybe it would be helpful if you went and visit them, and maybe you could address some of their concerns.
Yeah, I don't know what it would be, if you had any conversation with them or not.
One of the things was about if we put the gate down at the end of your driveway, just past it, that sometimes they have a landscaper that goes into the top of their property. And I explained to them about the key, and you would have control of it and so forth. So they're the kinds of things that really are out of the control of the township, that
Right, well, just.
be more neighborly type things, so.
Right.
Because I did convey to them about the culvert pipe and road surface and so forth, so.
Yeah, and we met and had a conversation a couple weeks back, and didn't really let anything road major come up between us as to the plans that the township has and my input, whatever it amounted to, so if this with the Knowles can just be, they want to be part of the conversation if they have a concern.
I mean, it might be helpful, because some of their concerns really deal with both of you as neighbors versus things that are in the realm of the township, and maybe if you address those before next month, that some of that.
Is there urgency for you? Is there urgency for you to have this done?
No, not really, but that, like as with anything else.
If we get it done.
Yeah, because that's, now it's instead of April, then it's May, and then if something comes up in May, then it's.
Now, we could still do what we had talked about doing tonight, and that is, authorize the solicitor to prepare an ordinance for vacating the road We wouldn't advertise at this point in time because we wouldn't want to adopt it until that culvert work and the road work is completed.
Yeah, and I sort of agree with Paul. We don't stop. We're here and business goes on, and if it's critical to you, you need to find a way to be here. If not, the board needs to, I think, move on.
You can always write a letter too, prior to our meeting.
And especially in the action that we're taking is not really.
Yeah, it's not going to be any adoption next month.
All we were looking at is to authorize the solicitor to prepare an ordinance.
Correct.
We're still a couple of months away from anything else happening.
That's correct.
Was there anything else you wanted to?
No.
Okay.
At least that much will be done, and
Yeah.
so,
We'll see what the board does.
You're still pursuing the agricultural preservation?
yep, that's kind of in the works with, Dalton's.
You have our full, I think you have our full support and
Okay.
our prayers.
And prayers, well,
Yeah, big time.
never hurts.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the solicitor to prepare an ordinance, and that's the essence of what we would be doing tonight.
Yeah. I mean,
Is there a second?
You didn't feel
Second.
issues
Second.
were significant.
Their most significant issues were the culvert pipe
Access.
and the road, and probably, I think the most significant after that was they were concerned about having to clear snow off that little section of roadway out to, yeah. So, they were the kind of things where I was saying, you know, you would have a shared driveway and, you know, talk. It's more of a neighborly
All right,
Yeah, we clear that.
discussion.
we have a motion and a second. Are there further questions from the board? We shall vote. The motion is that we authorize the solicitor to prepare an ordinance. Still gives time for the no's to come in and talk to us if they wish to. Aye?
Aye. Aye.
5 votes to the affirmative, so Mr. Solicitor, get your pen. Todd, the next I would see would be the folks that are here from SYC then.
Yes, I see.
And after this, we'll go back to the beginning.
There's one other person here.
I want to say one other thing real quickly. One of the joys of owning your own driveway, in this case, a conversion to a driveway, is you get to plow the snow. And that's making great fun, at least for the first hour.
Okay, you have our attention now.
Hi, thanks very much. My name is Matt Shue. I'm the president of SYC Baseball. I'd just like to say thank you to Shrewsbury Township and Todd. I mean, we've had a great partnership over the years for our ability to be able to use the Windy Hill Park. And, you know, with that partnership, you know, you guys have supported us in a tremendous way with some things that we've asked for. Whether it were things that we funded or had donated, like the concession stand, or whether we just recognized that, hey, we've got muddy dugouts and we just desperately need help before we start playing baseball next weekend, and we were able to get some pressure on this. So again, I just want to officially say thank you to you guys for the support you've given us. You know, we have a tremendous program. We have baseball opportunities year-round for the kids in the community, and we put all the money that we make right back into the program. We've been a part of Little League organization since 2016, and we do Little League in the spring, and then we do York County baseball in the summer and fall. And with one of the upgrades we'd like to make this year, we've been able to do a lot of tournament baseball, baseball opportunities with Little League at one of the fields, and we host a lot of our own events where we like to set up a PA system with a microphone and be able to play music and do, you know, fun events at the fields for the kids. So we submitted a proposal to Todd where we would propose and request that we're able to run electric from our concession stand where we have 100 amp service. We would trench electric to the backstop of what we call Ebbets Field, which is the small field closest to the parking lot. And then we would also trench electric to the left field fence of the large field. So that's a field we literally call Windy Hill Large. and then around the fence to the backstop of Windy Hill Large. So we're proposing a 20 amp service at the backstop of both of these fields that would be locked and turned off except when we're using it. And the use would literally be for nothing more than for us to be able to plug in an amplifier, some speakers, and a microphone so that we can do announcing during our tournament games. Right now, the way we facilitate that is with a generator. That's just not logistically as easy as if we had electric at the field, because we're constantly filling it up with gas and we're still running an electric cord from the generator back to the backstop. And then we're also in the same proposal, we'd like to put a 20 amp sub panel right here at this fence so that we can procure and install an electronic scoreboard that would show score, number of outs, and the pitch count for the pitchers that are pitching. So this is the image that would be very similar to the scoreboard we're proposing. It would be a 5-foot by 8-foot scoreboard that would be mounted on a 6x6 post at that left field fence facing into Windy Hill Large. And there would be no cables or underground connections to the scoreboard to the control panel. It's a wireless control panel. So all that information is what's in the proposal. Todd had it. He proposed or asked some questions back to me related to the proposal, and we tried to answer those and provide the extra information. So subject to your questions, that's all I have.
I may be old-fashioned, help me in, but you say music. I listened to what's called music today, and it's noise. And I don't know they had to go to get professional help because they're listening to this music at a facility like yours, like ours too. So what kind of music are you talking about here?
So we are very sensitive to the fact that we have families and children at these events, and they are literally the fun classics that you'd find at a ball game. Well, I don't know about that kind of classic, but more classic rock, if you will. You know, we're very sensitive to the mature lyrics of...
You got my vote.
Now you're talking my language, and I think that's lost on the kids too. But again, we are very sensitive to the music that we play. It is hits, but nothing with the foul language.
I'm not just refining it to Bing Crosby
I mean, short of his Christmas albums, I don't know.
One scoreboard that can be controlled for either field.
No, actually, you know, Evans Field here, sorry, my jacket's going. We actually have a stand with a scoreboard that has the hanging numbers. You know, Ebbets Field is our smallest field. That's a 150-foot fence. So our younger groups play on there, and we really love the old school feel of the hanging numbers. The kids can get up on the stand and they can change the numbers. So we do a lot of our all-star games, and we do our championship games for the younger divisions on this field, and that scoreboard is great. What we're currently doing is we're moving this manual scoreboard. We can take it off the stand, and we have some posts right here just past the bleachers down the third baseline, and we are literally moving that scoreboard back and forth. And, you know, again, logistically, it's possible, but, you know, with the improvements that we're recommending, we'd love to have an electronic scoreboard. And again, so just to give you a sense, you know, when you turn on ESPN in August and you see the Little League World Series, you know, that age group, that 11, 12 age group, we are hosting the District 14, 11, 12-year-old Majors Division tournament on Windy Hill Large this June. So I guess the last thing I would ask with the proposal, because we are starting the season, you know, if we do grant your approval to do this, I would ask that we would be given some time to get this accomplished because of the trenching and the safety concerns while we're actively playing baseball. This may be something that we can't do before Memorial Day weekend or before maybe the beginning of the summer, or just, again, based on scheduling, it may be late summer into early fall until we can, you know, logistically get this done because of the baseball schedule.
So the electric to the smaller field is strictly for a PA system?
This would be strictly for a PA system right there. That's a 20 amp sub panel that we're proposing. And again, that's just literally for a PA system.
You're getting the battling noise between the two fields if you have PA system at both? of them?
No, the distance here is great enough that the sound wouldn't really travel that far. When we have our PA system set up here, you know, we are again, sensitive to the amount of sound that it takes, but, you know, really, it takes quite a bit of sound to project up and down here, especially with some of the wind and the noise from 83.
Projecting toward the fields to try to prevent noise pollution out into the community.
That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, so one thing to note is we don't have lights, so, at least not yet. We'll talk to Todd about that in a couple of years. But,
I can tell you the board's position right now.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
you probably don't want to waste your time.
okay. But our speakers would point straight down the bass lines. And, you know, our latest game, we don't play after dark there, so could the community hear that? Probably this property here may be able to hear some noise.
Have you had any complaints?
No, the only complaints we've had have been related to parking on this private property right here, and we address that every season. And, you know, honestly, every year on opening day, when we're at their busiest, you know, we always end up with a car here and we have to get them moved, and, but we're very sensitive to
Just
that.
keep in mind, he said they've been using the PA system now, they're just running it off the generator.
Right.
So we have a whisper quiet generator that we put in the trees here right now.
Well, I think the only caution we'd make is if we started getting complaints for noise overflow, they'd have to dial the noise down.
And again, we're already very sensitive to that.
One step further, we don't want to get any complaints.
That's understood.
I mean,
If we can try to put a bow on this and move on, who's paying for the, you need our approval so that you can do it?
We would just like your approval to move forward
Your
with it.
funds,
Yes.
your donations and whatnot?
Correct, so.
Okay, so all you need is for us to say yes, you can
That's
go
it.
ahead and do the.
Licensed electrician, we have 3 quotes.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Wow, a really fast vote, guys, thank you.
Will you facilitate?
I'm just here to help.
Any further questions? We did get a pretty complete package, and thank you for the answers to the questions and the additional information. Let's vote. Dave?
Aye.
Aye? Aye. 5 votes to the affirmative, we have it approved.
Thank you. Just last question would be, you know, how long is the approval good for? If we don't get
Whatever we get it done.
Pretty much, yeah.
We're not going to put a time.
Yeah, there's no limit on it.
All right, thank you very much.
It's in your interest to get it done sooner, so make sure life easier.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you just want to wait until the middle of next year.
All right, thanks, Tom.
All right, have we covered everybody that's here that Bill?
Mr. Beal's here just for his development right verification, and he hears that, he can probably go.
Okay.
Let's do that one next. We're very accommodating tonight.
Well, we have the last item. We actually have 2 development rate verifications, and if you're okay with it, you can approve both of them in one motion.
I am okay with it.
You vetted them well?
Yeah, I reviewed all them, and he has 1 development rate.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to.
I'll second it.
Let Jeff finish for the whole motion.
I thought I was finished.
No, he didn't say what, you got 2.
I shall make the motion to approve them both.
Okay, thank you. I didn't hear that.
I believe we had the second.
We have a second. Any questions? We'll vote.
Aye.
Aye. 5 votes to the affirmative, they're both approved. All right, is there anybody else here that needs to be heard? I think we can go back to the very beginning. And that would be to approve the meetings from our minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the last month's meeting minutes.
I'll second that, yeah.
All right, no questions, let's vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative, they are approved. Treasurer's report for approval next.
I would make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll second it.
For March, I'd like to see a lot more than that. We take in $500,000 and spend less than $100,000. That will change over time. We have a motion and a second. Questions? We'll vote.
Aye.
Sorry,
That's all right. That's all, that's fine. Question, that's okay.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative. Treasurer's report is approved. approved. You have a budget versus actual report. I didn't see anything that's out of line, but it's sort of hard to tell from the first 3 months.
It was pretty good, though, Todd.
Spread out over the year. But any questions for Todd?
I just mentioned, it shows us how we're doing with our budget. Are we overspending according to our budget or not? And this shows that we're pretty much in line with this time of year as far as our budget is concerned.
Do you think we can, can we do one public comment at the end? This would be.
We should zip through this pretty quick.
Right. We're gonna hold off, if you don't mind, and have an opportunity for public comments when we're done, because we think we can go through this pretty quickly now. The next issue would be any questions on the manager's report. I believe we got no emails up to them, right?
Yeah, I have nothing to add, just one quick comment on the volunteer services tax credit program. We had 6 individuals that took advantage of that for 2018, 3 from Glen Rock Ambulance and 3 from Rose Fire Company. That's all I have.
You didn't give us any, huh?
What's that?
I said you didn't give us any people for the tax.
No, we pretty much decided we just want to start with 19.
Okay.
For the record keeping issue.
Okay. Just make sure you know it's there.
Oh, no,
I'm sure you do.
we're recording now.
All right. Any questions to Todd on his report?
Any updates, Todd, on any of the?
On the code?
All right. Let me get through. Yeah, can we get, any questions on the engineer's report? Maintenance department. Now we got codes in place.
To answer your questions, I have no updates since you received your written report.
The report is getting smaller, things are being dealt with, things are being taken care of, and not as many things are being added, and I think that's the result of some good upfront enforcement, so.
But spring is coming.
But spring is coming.
I have a question about the Southern Auto, et cetera. I saw that you were at the judge's.
Yes, I don't know what that decision is. She said she will mail it within 5 days.
And that was the 27th?
Yeah, 27th.
Okay.
For the hearing was.
But she had.
What was that in regards to, what cars were they weren't supposed to be again?
Correct.
Okay.
On the pervious surface.
Gotcha.
There's nothing 5 working days there.
Any other questions?
Oh, good call, thank you.
Other questions to Todd on the report? We have minutes from the planning commission, if there are any questions. Brings to supervisors' comments. I'll be very quick, I have a few. I did attend the meeting on March 12th with Todd and several of the people who were here tonight with the group affected by the zoning. I will say they were very thoughtful questions, very polite and appreciative group. And I think we at least responded to their questions. I attended a March 20 meeting along with Mike McLean and Todd and the North Hopewell Township supervisors. We discussed the line road closure and the bridges that need reconstruction. We had another meeting at the site on the 25th of March. We were joined there by Gary Peacock and his potential replacement from the York County Conservation District, and we were discussing with them potential funding assistance with doing those bridges. They were to send another group out to take some measurements and specify the length of bridge and so forth we would need, and I think we're waiting for that information before we get back together again, but just to bring you with an update. I will say they also asked us at York County, do we really need to keep this road open?
Well, how's the public service is going to get down to me? That's the next
What's
question.
the current cost of replacing that?
That's what we're waiting to get.
Yeah, they're waiting to get the verification from York County Conservation on the full width, full bank width, and then Jason from North Hopewell is supposed to be working on budgets for a GRS bridge, a 3-sided box culvert, and a 4-sided box culvert.
I think in all honesty, we have to consider the cost versus how many people are being served. I mean, this is.
Well, critical to this would probably be the ability to get a grant, and I think that's a big.
We get,
piece of
yeah,
it.
I feel we get a grant, yeah.
Well, I think North Hopewell is not in a position to do much funding at this point in time if you don't get a grant, yeah. So all this would be aimed at getting this information and applying for a grant.
Fine,
Things that we can do from there. And last, I did go to the March 25th SKEMA participation in the York County Spring Severe Weather Exercise Drill, where a tornado tore through the town. And as usual, good thumbs up to Stan. His group did a good job. And going through all the reports, I probably missed you anyway, if there's anything you wanted to.
I'll come up with the answers.
Okay, great. And also to give the solicitor a chance, with a little too fast.
Thank you, no reports.
Okay. I didn't want to be accused of not giving you an opportunity.
Tony, anything you want to say about a burn ban?
I'm sorry.
Is there anything you want to say about a burn ban? It's been all over the news with the wind and stuff, I don't know.
I know we're monitoring right now, humidity is extremely low, which is the reason for the red flag warning. It's out right now. Expires 11 tonight. They're looking at one for tomorrow. Calling for rain Friday. A lot of messages have gone out blasting, please don't do open burns. So not going wood head, we won't get any, but we're monitoring it, but I think we're okay right now.
So far, so good, right?
So far, so good. Now that I said that,
We gotta move on quick.
You already left tonight for something.
Yeah, I did say one light already, so.
I think on old business, there are two things left. Oh, I'm sorry, any other comments from supervisors?
Well, I have a comment, I know.
Mr. Wyden, I think you would. Go ahead.
I don't want to disappoint you, but I've been involved with solicitors in other townships, and sometimes when it gets late, not particularly late, but is there anything on the agenda that we think we need our solicitor for? Or does he just like to stay here?
I don't believe there is a need if he would like to leave.
It's very nice of you to think of me. I'll stay.
Thank you.
I'm pleased with your answer. It was just a test, actually.
Any other comments, Paul? From any other supervisor? I believe it's the intent that Ian, you, I, and Todd will be attending the PSAT conference. Although I think at least I've got 2 days outlined, Monday and Tuesday for that in Hershey.
I'll be attending only as a member of a panel.
Okay.
And it's not going to cost anything.
Okay. That's even better. Well, we all go back and forth each day, so there's really no cost to the township for us attending either other than the initial registration. I guess you want to give us a quick background on Strawberry Field. I think we need to do much there, but at least we need to present it.
Yeah, this is basically the borough boundary, and then the townships in this area. And this is Strawberry Fields Park, and actually boundaries up in here. This is a wetlands slash stormwater facility. As you can see, Shrewsbury Borough has some sewer lines that run through this area. This is Forest Lakes, this is a tributary to Deer Creek. And over the years, just sediment and so forth has built up, kind of choked out the stream that ran through there. And of course, and I think Stan can attest to this, that the water level's been rising, encroaching up into some of these holes in the borough. And I know they've had some issues with some of the manholes actually being underwater. So anyway, the Shrewsbury Borough had applied for an Exeline grant to go in and open this area up and try to reestablish this stream that passed through there to some degree to help pull in some of that expansion of the wetlands, and mainly to get the water off the top of the manhole covers, because of course with that you end up getting infiltration. So anyway, the construction part of that is around 63,500. The grant that is received by, and it's approved through the York County Conservation District, the Exelon grant, they received $56,250. With engineering, permits, and that difference of 10%, they think the cost would be somewhere additional $15,000 to $20,000 out of pocket costs. And the email was asking if the board would be willing to contribute anything to that out of pocket cost.
I'm sorry, if I could interrupt for a moment. It appears that the area in question is completely inside the township.
That is correct. But the work
How
is
did-
being, the
How
work,
did they get a grant for something that's not even in their jurisdiction, so to speak?
I did not apply for the grant, I do not know that answer.
They own the sewer lines.
Probably because of the sewer line.
They own the sewer lines.
And they do have a right of way through there for the
Right,
sewer.
right.
So I'm assuming.
Okay,
based
all right.
on that.
All right, continue. I'm sorry, you spoke with Brian, I think, as part of your...
Yeah, I did speak to Brian, and I did convey to him that, the township is, most of us probably know, we have nearly $1 million in estimated damages from the floods of end of August, and that was an unexpected expense, and I wasn't too sure that the board would be favorable. And mainly because it is, the purpose of the project is for the sewer authority sewer lines. And there's really not a benefit to the township.
Well, they're gonna do some beautification work, aren't they? Are they gonna plant trees?
I don't recall. I don't think so. Because they're just working in the right of way and then the reestablishing the stream.
Well,
And I did speak to Brian, and he said he certainly understood that, but he did ask that he would be hopeful that we would be cooperative and allow access across our property, which is right here.
Do we need to act on allowing access?
I don't know that you need to do it formally, as long as there's a consensus, I think that's
I
sufficient.
think take that one first. I think from a consensus, we're okay for them to go in. And unless I hear a motion that we contribute money, we'll move on. If somebody wants to pursue that.
Well, it depends. Paul, where are you on the beautification?
well, I appreciate what they're doing. It's within the township. But, if they're gonna plant if they're gonna beautify the area and do some other kind of work, and it's not gonna cost, I'll let it contribute something, maybe $500 or something, just.
I don't think they are.
It's just mainly.
It's mainly to reestablish this,
Then I would agree, we don't have to do anything, but I just want to be sure that we are being too hard-nosed. Okay.
Anybody feel differently?
I'll tell you one thing, footnote.
Paul's sleeping.
This stream starts up at the facility there across the road,
Lutheran Village.
what?
The Lutheran Village.
There's a beautiful wetland in there, and that's where the stream started, and then the stream goes through people's backyards. So each segment is managed differently depending on whose property it is. And so this is why sometimes we need to do a better job. This was done years and years and years ago, but today we have an easement all the way up to the Lutheran home. And now it's really complicated and difficult to manage.
All right, if we move on, Messina Highlands Landscaping. Yes, we'll give Todd a chance here. What we're looking at, I think, just to introduce, is that we've not had much cooperation from the Messina Highlands group to follow through on the landscaping requirements. The board has previously voted that we will basically forfeit their bond. We will use that money, and apparently we're also going to need some more to put that landscaping in place ourselves, and to that point, you've gotten some quotes.
correct. I did make 3 requests. We only received 2, which I have in front of you. The bidders bid on the same areas, Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3. The pricing is there for each of those zones with a grand total for the entire complex. Omni Property Solutions was $14,570.80. Keomar Enterprises LLC was $11,378. And the third one I requested was Northbrook Landscaping over in the Stewartstown area, and I did not receive a response from them.
We're holding a bond of $5,000.
Yeah, the bond is roughly $5,500.
But we would go back to Messina High.
Yeah, what we can do is we can, if you award it to the lowest bidder, which is Keomar, we'll work with Keomar to do, probably Zone 1 or 3, and then part of 2, or we'll work it out that it'll be up to $5,500. But then we need to send a letter and then basically an invoice to Messina Highlands, tell them, under the MPC.
We'll hold off until we get that.
We can't actually do it until we get that money from them.
Okay.
And if they refuse to pay it, then there's legal action.
Right.
They'll have that.
Here's a case where a property owner did not maintain his landscaping plan as approved by the township. And so we have to go back and go through this process. It's unfortunate, but if that's what it takes to make them do it right, that's fine.
I'll make a motion that we would make an award to Keomar Enterprises and that we would limit their scope of work to the amount of the bond until we would be successful in getting additional money to cover the balance from Messina Highlands.
Second.
Motion to second. Questions? We'll vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. 5 votes to the affirmative. We'll proceed in that manner. All right, I think we're to new business now, I guess. I'm sorry. Bill?
Yeah.
I was looking down.
Just trying to help get things resolved. The Zone 3 part of it, that's actually the bank. Is there much of the landscaping involved in that part of it that they would be responsible for that part of the landscaping? Messina didn't do
The bank owns that property?
no, but they did all their own improvements on that part. So they,
But the thing is, Messina, they own the property,
Understand.
correct, and they lease it to the bank, and Messina is the one that has the approved plan, so. I mean, if there's something with the bank, that's something Messina would have to work out with them.
do you have a number for what the breakdown is? I mean, I'm trying to find a way to make it work and get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I can get with you tomorrow.
If you do that, let me know what that is. I think I can come right from the bank and maybe make things easier.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, okay.
Thank you, Phil.
Also, one thing, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'll be brief. We're aware that some of the trees that are planted, some of the street trees that are planted eventually die, and the property owner is required to maintain them and or replace them. And Todd's going to put a program together by which we systematically review street trees. And if some have died, they got to be replaced.
Okay.
Put on record.
We'll move to new business, and we're looking at the purchase of a new pickup truck.
Yeah, we budgeted $70,000 for a new pickup truck. The 2019 model through CoStars is $50,350. And I mentioned there at a later point in time, Mike will be coming in with a proposal for the 9-foot plow and the commercial grade bed cap. But at this point in time, we're just looking for authorization to move forward with the purchase of the 2019 pickup truck at $50,350 under state contract.
So we're on a motion to move forward with that.
So we're about 9,000 under budget, and we'll collect another 9 or 10 and selling the old truck.
Correct, which we did not budget that.
I'm sorry, Dave, you said something.
My question was, did we need a 2019? Did we look at one that was a few years older?
Well, we budgeted for a brand new one.
I understand we budgeted for it. to get a
Well,
used
right
one.
now, with the price of used ones,
The list price on this is 60,000. Under state contract, we're getting it for 50.
you ain't gonna get a used one under state contract.
And that's the thing, if you go get a used one, it's gonna be retail price, you're not gonna get it at state contract.
Okay.
It is kind of shocking because some of us live in a house that didn't cost that much. But anyways, it's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, we got, what, 13 years, 14 years out of the last one?
Did we buy that one new?
I think we bought that new, didn't we? I wasn't here.
2006 one?
Yeah, I'm sure it was new. I don't know that for a fact, but Paul was on the board then. Was Mike's picked up brand new one
forever,
forever?
hasn't he?
I was on the board since the township was founded.
I thought so.
Everybody expects to remember every detail of every meeting, and that's.
You put a motion on the floor, right, Jeff?
Yes.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Further comments? You vote? Dave Stingley.
I just did a quick Google search. They've got 2017 F-150s for 30,000.
You're talking 150, we're talking 250.
My apologies.
350.
All right, I've been swayed.
I'm sure it's a
That
250.
bigger
At least a
engine's more
250.
expensive.
Yeah, I think it's 350.
Maybe, that's what I figured it might be, with putting the snow plow and everything on
All
it.
right,
That's right, Dave.
I will come back.
Aye. Aye. I votes to the positive. I guess Mike's got himself a new truck. I guess.
Regretfully. Wasn't that our word from before? Reluctantly?
I guess we're looking at crack sealer if you want to.
Yeah, Mike had talked to me about this last year, and again, for the budget for this year. What we normally do is we rent a crack sealer and share it with Glenrock Borough, Shrewsbury Borough, and Shrewsbury Township. As you know, we have roughly 70 miles of road, and we have a crack sealer for about 2 days out of the year.
What does it do specifically? I guess it seals cracks.
Yeah.
But is it automated? Is it?
No, it's manually with the hose and the hot pot and the tar pot and stuff and all that, so. But it's a big pull behind unit.
Is this a new or a used crack?
This is new, and again, this is under state contract.
I've heard good things about the state
You
contract.
did, yes.
I think our chairman asked a very legitimate question.
What was that? Oh, what's it do?
Yeah, I mean, it was a legitimate question. A lot of us may have had it on mind, but he had the courage to
Well,
ask.
they first go, it's a multiple man process. They go through first and clean out all the little dirt and gravel and so forth, typically blow it out of the cracks in the roadway. And then they come through and they put this thick tar sealant over the crack, which helps prevent moisture and water getting down in there and prevents, especially that freeze and thaw in the winter time, because that's where your potholes come from. That water gets down underneath, freeze and thaws, lift and drop. And, but the thing is, you know, it's $1,700 a week to rent it. And granted, we share that cost, but we get to use about 2 days out of that week. Now, we could rent it more on our own, but we're going to be paying $1,700 a week.
Okay,
So we're looking at
And the
that.
other thing is, if we own this jointly with Shrewsbury Borough and Glenrock Borough, it'll be more available to us throughout the year when we need it or weather permits. And
But the downside is we're now paying $600 a year. Because we
correct, for 2 days.
For 2 days.
Right.
And now-
Which is not enough time, which is not near enough time for us to get.
But we could, just to look at devil's advocate, both sides, we could rent it once a month, we could rent it once a quarter, and at some point in time, it's still maybe cheaper to do that. The other side of that is I think it's something that Borough and Glenrock want to do pretty badly. And we do a lot of stuff together, so I also don't want to get in the way of accomplishing something that several municipalities want to do.
Glenrock, they've already approved it. I don't know if it's going to be on Shrewsbury Borough. I know they haven't acted on it yet, so it may be on their agenda later.
I'm just trying to show both sides of it, you know, so we understand what we're doing.
Okay.
Where's this thing gonna be kept? In the shed between the
Shrewsbury Township. And then we will also share the cost of the insurance for that particular piece of equipment as well.
And any
And both boroughs are aware of that.
Do we, if we proceed, I assume we would do, I did talk to our solicitor, but probably if we just did a little memorandum, just an agreement between the municipalities,
Correct.
not an intergovernmental, just a letter that says, hey, this is what we're doing.
General understanding.
Or general, yeah, that's a good word for it. Thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the crack sealer.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? We'll vote.
Aye.
Why is it so odd? It's always a pause. Dave starts it off very well, and there's a long pause.
She's thinking.
I'm sorry, I'm
And
slow.
then there's a very soft motion.
She was weighing her options.
I'm sort of the same way, you know, it's cost us more money than if we rented it, but I guess I gotta think we're gonna have better roads and convenience if we do it. Aye.
You asked some very good questions.
Aye.
5 votes to the affirmative, 2 of the 3 parties are now ready to proceed. Okay,
Excuse me.
good?
Thank you,
Bless
excuse me.
That's
All right, moving forward, Todd, I think the next one's pretty simple. We have an agreement with Lutheran Social Services for payment in lieu of taxes, and they get a 20% basically discount, and we forgot to give them that discount.
As did the
last 2
county,
years.
as did the county.
As did the county, and as did the school board, I believe.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Well, yeah, for what that equates to for Shrewsbury Borough, they would get a refund for 2018 of $124.32. And they would get the same amount as a credit for the 2019 tax.
You said borough, you meant town.
You said, in the township.
It's
I don't
late.
understand.
Perfectly understandable.
It is late.
It's long.
So the amounts are on the second page at 124.
Correct.
Well, it's the same for both years.
Same for both years. One is a refund check for 2018 that we will disperse. The 2019 is a credit that the tax collector will apply.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with those refunds with.
When's that going to be mailed out? Immediately, I'm assuming?
I'll second that.
Yeah, middle of the month.
Okay.
15th.
Motion and a second, questions?
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative, we'll process those. And I believe the last thing before we hit correspondence and public comments is 2 stormwater agreements.
Yes, stormwater
These are
operation maintenance.
Amendments, right?
The one is an amendment because they amended their stormwater plan.
I think
That's for Court.
they both say amendments. You need to make that minor
Are we
correction.
make an amendment to the amendment? Like 2 negatives.
Yeah, let's look here. Yeah, that's the first page. Well, thank you for catching that.
For which one? Which one is not an amended agreement?
The White Oak Road. At the top left. You look there.
That is not the amendment?
That is not. The one that is has the bold heading at the top, says amended.
Anything else unusual or different about these?
No, they're both for new homes.
I make a motion that we approve both of these, striking the word amended from the White Oak Road agreement.
Second.
Questions? We shall vote.
Aye.
Aye. They are approved. I would just mention one thing that's in correspondence, and we got information, I guess, regarding the small wireless facilities, and there may be a few things we need to do to our ordinances to bring those up to date. Todd and I have had a little discussion. We need to do some review to make sure we're comfortable. This is a new law, I guess, at the FCC, so I guess it's beyond the state and federal law that allows small wireless facilities, which is probably an antenna on a pole, to basically come into any right-of-way and put that up, and there's not much we can do to stop it. But we can require some aesthetic, impose some aesthetic requirements, and there are limits to the size and so forth. We did fight this, along with many other municipalities, but in the end, I think it was lessened, but they did go through with it. We are allowed to make some charges, and I believe we should amend our fee schedule to include those. If it's all right with the board, I think Todd and I can work together to do most of this, and somebody else wants to sit in, just yell after the meeting, and we'll open it up for someone else as well. Most of this, I think, we would do in conjunction, Todd, with this year's review and update as needed with our ordinance, rather than a special need to go pay to advertise and like that, but just to protect us a little bit. Any other questions on any correspondence?
I'm still amazed that Town Rescue has 244 cats. But they're having.
You want some?
I give it a lot of.
Got some space, Paul. I'm sure we can get you a couple.
All right, the last thing on the agenda, and we appreciate the perseverance for anybody that wishes to be heard, but we have another period for public comment. If somebody would like to speak, Stan, come on up. Gotta have somebody.
Well, I just want to say what a hardy, intrepid group of citizens that stuck it out to the end here.
This has got to be a record for the longest.
I am Stan Walters, the Emergency Management Coordinator for South Central York County EMA, serving the boroughs of Glen Rock, Railroad, Shrewsbury, and Shrewsbury Township. SCEMA did take part, as Art indicated earlier, in the annual PEMA weather drill on Tuesday, March 26th. We activated the EOC at 9 a.m. Our primary EOC is located in the Shrewsbury Borough Building. We have a backup EOC located here in the Township Building. And we did request, as the scenario was being developed, that they would include an inject message that would prompt us to evacuate the primary and open up the secondary EOC. And so during the drill, we were responding to various messages that were being kind of thrown at us from county as to, as Art said, a tornado. And at one point, we got a message that said that the Shrewsbury Borough Building had been damaged, the roof had been torn off, and the rain and wind were pouring in. And Art was with us at that point and came here and evacuated with us. So we did accomplish that main task. The purpose of the drill is to exercise our procedures and policies to look for any gaps or problems that were in them and make notes of that. And we did find some things, and so we have an action item list to take care of. And another item, as a result of the August 31st flooding from last year, as you know, the recovery has been ongoing here in the county and in the township. One of our volunteer groups has adopted the Clearview Drive property that's got several sheds, the debris from several sheds on it. So you will, well, if you have to go down there, but on Saturdays, on the nice Saturdays between now and the end of May, you may see volunteers down there on any particular Saturday. Great. But I did get a call from, and this is the group we've really been waiting for, Team Rubicon. Team Rubicon is a veterans-run volunteer group, and their specialty is the use of heavy equipment. And they have a corporate sponsor that loans them heavy equipment to do really big projects. And they have an advanced team coming into York County finally. We've been trying to get them here since last fall. So I'm hoping that we might be able to get them to bring some heavy equipment into that area and just knock all that down for the volunteers to tear out instead of us having to cut it up. So I'm going to see if they won't be able to help us with that, because primarily they're looking to do demolition with their equipment, but also talk to a gentleman on the phone about maybe getting them to help with some of the bridges. And I don't know if we have any private creek crossings yet that have not been repaired in the township, but I'll work with Todd on that. And finally, we're really having a lot of success with our Facebook page. We're seeing reach, what's called a reach, like the number of people are seeing a post. The most we've had is we had a reach of about 7,000 on one of our Facebook postings. People tend to be really interested in what's going on, traffic, and construction-wise, that seems to be popular, that reaches a lot of people, so, thank you.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you. Our normal big thumbs up to you. Anybody else who wishes to address the board at this time? If not, there's a detour coming up. Will that be on our website? We have a 30 Road 216, I think it was.
Yeah. Yes, I can put that on the website.
Yeah, just so people would be aware.
We take care of this.
Yeah, I can probably do it. So we'll try to put that on the website so people will be aware. I'm not quite sure where it is on 216, but
Is that the Pierceville Run
Yes.
replacement?
April to October.
yes, over Pierceview Creek, Pierceville Creek.
So it'll, yeah, so it'll be way out on the west side.
Okay. Wait, anybody else from the board have anything for the good of the evening?
I'll make a motion to dismiss.
Second, let's say we are adjourned officially.